What's up, Miss A? I've got I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I've got like fucking hay fever attack today. Let me
Oh
just go
no.
wipe my
You
nose
need
and shit.
you need some Benadryl.
I know. I don't really take hay fever medication because it doesn't tend to work, but I don't know. Maybe. Let me just
Oh, that's so
well,
funny.
what did what did you think of that fucking shit? Are we like this is a recorded space? Are we going to talk about that space at the
We
start?
can,
Because I
yeah,
think
absolutely. Like I think people will probably need to decompress a little bit. I mean, I was very patient. I had no interest in slandering Daz. I
yeah,
really just, and I definitely don't think that I'm a victim. I shared those screenshots with intention, and I shared them in a way that had a lot of impact. Um, and I know that it was hurtful. Like I own that part. What I'm not apologetic for, and welcome Gandalf, welcome to the room. What I'm not apologetic for, though, is that I had context too. I think that people forget that part. Um, my main concern really wasn't the monetization of spaces. It was actually more the discussions about the toxic people or the abusive people in the community and how people were going to turn a blind eye to their behavior, and allow them to operate in their abusive capacity to facilitate a purpose. And the danger in doing that to someone who is in the middle of a crisis. So they talk about libel and slander. It's really interesting though. RPK has attacked me pretty relentlessly. And then he's got his proxies like Flack who see me in a space like that where I'm just there to listen. And he's posting RPK propaganda in the nest.
yes.
Yeah.
It's
So
it's typical hate group
Oh,
tactics, and so like
yep.
wasn't it interesting, Miss A, like the desperation from Daz, like not to let you up to speak, like he did not want you up on that panel. That was like fucking really a good data point, wasn't it? And
I
his
mean,
desperation to like protect Chase, like a person who harasses women in the community, like why is he so desperate to protect this guy and to stop people speaking the truth about it? Like, wow, I'm speechless by that. What do
yeah,
you think?
it was pretty harsh. I think that for the most part, when I host spaces or I co-host spaces, like people have a good time and we try to keep it on topic. And we're gonna get to the topic tonight, guys. We're just decompressing, if you're just joining us from a pretty intense space about abuse, sex trafficking, sexual abuse, doxing, harassment on social media, which is congruent across all platforms. Um, and I've been subject to that too myself. Hi, Ursula, welcome. Um, so has Ursula. There's a lot of illegal stuff that goes on this platform. Um, Aside from the hurt people that come here to kind of eject their emotion on other people. Hi, Kimball. Welcome. I do have a statement though. I was going to read something in that space. So if you've heard my name, there was a group here that was talking about monetizing spaces, and they were talking about one individual who's been pretty toxic to the community for a while. My first account here on X, I was here in May of 2020, and been on and off the platform since. So I've got to see a lot of the interpersonal dynamics and the lore that has popped up around those dynamics, become real, become a reality. Um, so I'm just going to read this. So when you see propaganda, because there's a lot of it out there, that tries to paint me like I'm playing the victim in this, I'm not. I totally knew what I was doing. I moved with purpose. I held on to these screenshots that have been the controversy for a while before I posted them on Daz's page. And I really did that out of concern for Chase, which is the irony out of this whole thing because of how they were discussing him. So I'm going to read this. Then we're going to pivot to the topic because I don't want to waste too much time on the bullshit and drama, but I feel like everybody needs like a breath. Little
More than a breath from that shit show.
Just
I mean,
take,
I've never seen
yep,
anything so
yep.
fucking
Have a
so funny.
drink, hit your pen, have a gummy, do your yoga, whatever you got to do to decompress from that because it was intense. But I'm just going to read this and then we can react and then we can move on. I had 2 community members come to me after being included in a group chat where there was discussion about monetizing spaces. There was concerns expressed about the tone and some of the things said about abusive individuals on the app and weaponizing them. I held on to these out of respect for those that had come to me until I saw this abusive individual referred to as a friend. I chose to share them out of concern for this abusive individual, knowing his history here. Since I shared these screenshots, I have been accused of doctoring them, misrepresenting them, called a liar, spoken about in spaces, propagandized that is spread, even in the nest of the prior space, to defame and slander me. The irony is now the idea to monetize spaces is now discussed openly while I am still being slandered publicly. RPK coordinated the harassment campaign against me and his friends continue to do so. My instinct has always been to protect, and I don't even want to see the people who speak about my genitals in a public place to be abused here. I would encourage people not to take sides and look at it through the lens of who the agitators are versus those who aren't. I see a lot of predatory behavior here on X, which is true across all social media platforms, that is coordinated, weaponized, and used against people with the intention to either suppress their voice or bully them off of the platform completely. So that is my experience. And I do have recordings and other things of abuse that was directed at me. I'm willing to move past all that. Personally, I would rather talk about the topic and, do what we need to do. But I moved from a place of concern. If it was hurtful to people involved, I guess the reaction that was given was kind of a tell too in and of itself. And the fact that now these things that were supposed to be this misrepresentation, especially about monetizing spaces, is now spoken about openly, and so is weaponizing the individual. So now that that's all been admitted to, I'm still being attacked. So I just want to say that if you're on this app, be very careful about what you do. If you are going to support people in maybe stopping abuse or whatever, just be prepared to be a target or holding people accountable. I think my biggest thing around this topic in general, and especially in online communities like this, is transparency. I think if you do things and you exclude people, it doesn't breed a atmosphere of trust or understanding with other people. And I would say too, just be very careful. Like we had the episode with Jack, and there's been a lot of people winding people up who are in a fragile state mentally. And I would just say, please be very careful about doing things like that. That's part of the reason why I speak out about this kind of behavior, is because really ultimately I'm afraid that someone who is in the middle of a crisis is going to be exploited. And that the reaction that you may get may not just be a meme-worthy, event that you can then put on the internet and laugh about, but that it could cost somebody their life or their freedom, and to keep that in mind. So if you guys want to jump in, if anybody would like to come up and speak, please feel free to request. And I would let Inner and Gandalf, if you guys want to respond, to go ahead, and then we will move on.
Yeah, so you said, you've been targeted, which we've all seen in the last few months, the targeted campaign against you. But in that last space, your voice was even being suppressed. They were openly talking about not letting you up on the panel to speak. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, I'm still laughing about it. It's so fucking wild. I don't know how you feel about that. That was an eye opener for me.
I would say appreciate, I look at things like I don't take that personally. I get it. I was in hostile territory. So the chances that they were even going to let me up on the speaker panel were pretty slim. I'm not, batting in the dark here, but yeah, I was a little taken aback by that. And I would hope that, like, I unblocked a whole bunch of people so they could attend this space, whether they wanted to come up and speak or just be able to come in the space. Because I think that, if you're going to talk about unity in this community, really the only way you can do that is to lead and like show people. But I have no hard feelings against Daz, and I'm not out to get Daz, contrary to what he thinks or defame him. I do think that there is something seedy going on in the background as far as domain squatting here on X. The Rogers wallet that was involved in the rug pull last year is still buying domain names, Sol domain names. So that's still happening even now. And I still don't know who owns that wallet. I would like to. But unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get those answers. I mean, because if anybody has them, they haven't been forthcoming as of yet. So Gandalf, go ahead, and then we're going to move on.
And I can actually tie this all together, but I won't give my full disclosure defined, but I can tie it all together. Part of and I'll give my partial definition what I was saying. Part of disclosure defined is, it's almost and it's definitely more than this, but if you think of an analogy like a chessboard, we're seeing moves. And one of the biggest moves that was just done, Lou Elizondo is moving to Washington, D.C. That's a big move. We don't know what that's about, but that's still a move. And then the other, which is bigger than that, is the UAPDA, so the UAP Disclosure Act. I think it's version 2 or 3. I don't really remember, but anyways, it got passed through the Congress. So my point is we're seeing both the antibodies of the legacy program retaliating. So that could be psyops, that could be all of their uh, tentacles, out there, increasing whatever it is they're doing, and we're also seeing that as a threat, and bringing it back to the blast space, that and disclosure is a total threat to people that already have control of the community right now. And so disclosure opens up the door and the floodgate for everyone else in the world, because if we get disclosure, um everyone else joins the table and they're not number one anymore. And so we've really seen a ramp up in not only the DoD psyops, but we see people in the community copy. They go, "Oh, I know there's a legacy program and they're using these tactics. I'm going to copy their exact tactics." So they're literally doing the exact same shit that we're seeing used against whistleblowers. Like, what the f? And so to kind of bring it all together, um, I've been very vocal, and people have asked me if I'm okay, and yes, I'm okay. I get very passionate, and so I've already put all my evidence out there, and so I don't need to say any more. If people want to go back and look through, there's enough evidence. But yeah, that kind of ties it all together. We're seeing the antibodies, if you will, react, and we're seeing that in both the DoD and here on UFO, actually UFO Twitter, because I don't see it anywhere else. If people don't know, and I'm kind of landing my plane here. I have social media accounts everywhere. People don't know me. I work in IT. I'm a cybersecurity analyst. I just have social media accounts everywhere. Literally, I have accounts on everywhere. I'm a super admin at work. That means I'm an admin. I create admin accounts. I'm a super admin. So I understand how programs work. I understand how software works. And I'm in all the communities. I really don't see this much stuff landing my plane, except for kind of on Reddit. But it's really increased here, and I think people just be aware of it. Don't get sucked up into it. Document it, and yeah, and just hang on tight, because disclosure's on the way, in my opinion. And I'll share some more too about what disclosure means to me. But yeah, that's what I think for now. Whoa! And we just see Christopher Sharp just joined. Holy cow!
Welcome, Chris. Thanks for coming. I want to redirect the space and just kind of touch on what I wanted to accomplish in this space. So we hear the term disclosure thrown around a lot. We hear people define it in different ways. And I think that for me personally, it's been a personal journey for me. And I think that a lot of what we see around us is an attempt to externalize something that has a non corporeal element to it. Most abduction stories or recounts from contactees and abductees include some type of non corporeal interaction. May that be floating through walls, may that be, seeing beings pass through walls or people getting pulled through walls. There's a lot of non-corporeal and like spiritual side to this. So what I posed was, is the current narrative an exercise to externalize a process that should be personal and unique to the individual? Is the focus on biologics and crashed craft, or as 𝗂𝗓𝗶𝘁𝗶𝘂𝗰𝗂 said, maybe gifted craft, an attempt to collapse the ethereal aspect of the phenomenon, or is it used as a distraction? So I have a unique perspective because I kind of sit in two seats at once. I'm what Kimball calls a super experiencer, but I'm also a skeptic. For those of you that don't know me, that are new here in the space, I worked with a team over Christmas last year with Dr. Wilson, Dr. Proctor, Dr. Morrison, and Will Brown from Incredible History. And we did a forensic analysis on the Nazca mummies that essentially debunked them and proved that, to us at least, definitively, that these were mutilated human remains. So I also occupy this seat of skeptic. So it's a very weird place for me to be. And when I look at what we're seeing in the current disclosure narrative, I like how you said, Gandalf, that, you know, it's like an antibody response. I think that you have certain mechanisms that are so baked in to the landscape right now that there is a reactionary or almost autonomic response from the people that are still holding on to whatever knowledge it is they're pocketing, and that you see that play out on a macro and micro scale. I think this whole thing recently with 𝗂𝗓𝗃𝗃 and 𝗬𝗓 Elizondo is a great example of the news cycle slow. We're going to start throwing some mud. We're going to get people agitated. And I think ultimately from that macro to micro scale, things like that autonomic response where you see knee-jerk reactions, people getting targeted, people getting doxxed, people getting called, you know, controlled opposition, to the stuff you see here on X, even with the personal attacks and the doxing, that a lot of that works to distract everybody. I think that a lot of that is mechanized to keep people unfocused or focused away from what we really should be looking at this on this topic or towards this topic. And it keeps us from talking about the things that matter, and that plays into their hands. It's very convenient. So go ahead, Gandalf, you've got your hand up if you want to jump in.
Oh, is it still up? It might be bugged. Ooh, shoot. Well, yeah. Well, I was gonna to add to your points. That was good. Let me turn my TV off. Those are really good points. But what I have a whole lot to say of what disclosure means to me. But two big points. I threw up 𝗂𝗓𝗃𝗃𝗃. He's graced us with joining us to listen here. But he tweeted out this whole thing with Dr. Phil tells me that something big is happening within the White House right now, and that everyone that has access, within exception of Dr. Phil, is keeping their mouth shut. I took that too. And I want to tell you guys all this and what it means. Let's go find. Um, you all know me. People have called me super experiencer. I don't like that term. It just like I mean, I would equate that. I don't like the term, but I'm a lifelong experiencer. I've been abducted. I was missing for 3 days. My family can all hear that, but just a little bit of background. I was missing for 3 days. My family thought I was partying, but I'll explain that another time. But what it means to me, Dr. Phil came out. My mom and my mother love Dr. Phil's sisters and my wife. Watching Dr. Phil, I go in my family group chat and I'm like, hey, did you guys see this? Now my whole family is UFOs. So like something big is, and my personal definition of disclosure, my family's already had it. My in-law is a pastor. He's been a pastor for going on 45 years now. He has a doctorate. I forget what it's called, but he believes in aliens. Or NHI, whatever you want to call it. And so disclosure defined. And then one thing I want to say too, and land my plane here. I have so much more to say, but I threw up in the nest. I won't read through the whole thing. I've proven, and many other people have proven, Jeff Cruikshank, and there's another person by MJ Polk, Stanton Friedman. Myself is real. I'm not saying all the MJ12 or MJ12 real, but some of them are. And one of them up here is my point. Disclosure defined. We're gonna have to of human history, and I'll explain.
You're rugging, Tio. Are you walking around, Muffin?
No.
Because you're rugging for me.
Oh crap! Am I still rugging?
That's better.
Okay, no, I'm not walking. But to land my plane, when I was in college, in my computer science classes, we learned that the term artificial intelligence in 1995. I found in the White Hot Memo report the term artificial intelligence written in 1947 by 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗶𝘂𝗂𝗏. So what does that mean? It means I was wrong. It means my tests that I took in class for my fucking degree were wrong. It means that we have to rewrite all of computer science books because the term artificial intelligence was actually coined by 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗶𝘂𝗂𝗏 in 1947 by Einstein and a couple other scientists. So land my plane there. We're gonna have to redefine history and say what other history do we have to retell wrong.
I've lost you at the end there a little bit, but I think I know where you're going with that. So, like, from my perspective, because I've done a lot of research, I've spent probably the better part, almost 20 years, moving in different circles and speaking to other contactees and experiencers. So, like, the believing's over for me. People like us, we don't need proof from the government. So disclosure to us, for me personally, would just be the acknowledgement that there's something going on. Yes, people are getting taken. Yes, we know they're getting taken, because I do believe they know and they're aware. And give some people some type of relief off that pressure valve of feeling like you are crazy, you are, experiencing something that's, totally fringe, and there's a lot of stigma still attached around abductees and contactees and people that have experiences with this phenomenon. So, like, you have the nuts and bolts folks who look at things like Roswell and they measure time in that 80-year increment from then. For me, in my research and in my talks with people, one of the themes that repeats is like this tap or nod to different religions around the world, to a depth of time, deep time, that goes way beyond 80 years. So I chuckle when I hear people talk about Roswell, because even though I understand it's culturally significant, to me, in the greater scope of disclosure, I think you've got to go back to, like, the old Stone Age, like 80,000 years ago. We need to be looking back that far. And I think that a lot of this, a lot of the narratives we're seeing play out right now, like with the pastors, that's a perfect example. I actually wrote an article about that. People are trying to scale this down. Part of that collapsing it from a non-corporeal and corporeal event to simply nuts and bolts, and kind of dismissing all that does a huge disservice. So, like, to classify aliens as angels and demons, or to classify aliens as just interdimensional or interplanetary or intergalactic, I think it does us all a disservice. And I think it just kind of speaks to an overall arrogance in the face of the unknowable. So when I look at people that speak with certainty that there are experiencers that have built dogma around their abduction experiences and have packaged them into a product and sell that product, I wonder what the motivations are. A lot of them are doom leaning. And I made the comment yesterday on someone's post here on X, where you keep hearing this fear narrative, this doom narrative over and over again from a lot of different talking heads revolving around the topic right now. And my impression is that they're trying to scare people off the topic. That's how it looks to me. So, like, when people talk about disclosure, it's like, well, what do you want to hear exactly? I guess is my question to the room. Do you want to hear that it's, angels and demons? Like, what would make people feel comfortable?
This is an interesting point, isn't it? Because I think we've had 4 drops so far with the UFO files. And like nobody really knows like what direction we're going in. Like, is there going to be something in these files in the next few drops that would be disclosure, that everyone would think like, wow, this is it. So like, and we've got the rumors now of like Elizondo moving to Washington to become the UAP czar as well. So is there a plan for like Lou to announce something? I just can't see like where what direction it's going in, and like, are we like that video that Dr. Phil put out yesterday where he said like there's some kind of plan where Trump is planning to like stand on the podium and announce disclosure to the world. But at the moment, with all the processes in play, I can't see where that plan is, and I can't see like what the announcement would be, and what direction they go in. And also we've got the immunity, haven't we, for the whistleblowers to come forward. Burleson put out a post a few days ago, pleading for whistleblowers to come forward and they can testify to ARO, and get some immunity from their NDAs, and that's problematic in itself, isn't it? Because people don't trust ARO, whistleblowers don't trust ARO from like for good reason, from from previous experience. So I like personally I can't see which direction we're going in at the moment, and like what kind of announcement would be made in the next like few weeks or months that would like make us believe that all this is real,
Well, and that goes back to my original question, because everybody defines disclosure as something different. So like for someone like me, I don't really need anything from the government other than the acknowledgement would be solid for me. Other people are going to need, you hear a lot of talk about crash craft or crash retrievals, or biologics. And that is how people define it. And
It is, yeah.
and won't
It
entertain,
is.
right, and won't entertain that it may not be that black and white.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if we're going to assume that like Roswell was real, there's no reason that threatens any kind of national security why they can't like bring out like history, like documented photos over the decades of the beings that were recovered, any tests that they done on them, and photos of the craft like at the time, and photos of it like in a laboratory setting. That doesn't reveal like any secrets to like any adversaries. So I think that would be something which the general public would expect. I mean, that's what people expect, isn't it? That all these crash retrievals and bodies are real, but I'm not entirely convinced, because we've seen loads of like evidence, but so far there's no smoking gun, and yeah, I don't know what to believe.
Well,
So I try.
oh, sorry.
Go
Go ahead,
ahead,
Lisa.
Theo. No, go
Yeah.
ahead, honey.
I was gonna say, and let me know if I rug, and I'll stop talking. I turned off all my electronics. For me, like I said, disclosure already happened. For me, like disclosure, but that's just my personal definition. Everyone has their own definition. But personally, I've already had disclosure, but I understand that this like real disclosure means coming from a head of a country or a nation. That's what other people determine. So that's what I'm here for. And you look at it, I mean, the government's already kind of lining up to do it. And I'm not saying Lou's going to be the czar. I don't know anything. No one's told me anything. Lou just got on and he said, "Hey, I got a trailer behind me. I'm moving to DC." That's pretty big news. So I'm just reading the room. We'll see what happens. Dr. Phil's now involved. I forgot what else I was going to say. Shoot. I think that was pretty much it. Yeah, I forgot the other parts. I don't want to just ramble, but if someone else wants to talk, I'll come back later.
So in preparation for this space, like, because I think we all think about this, right? And welcome, Ash. I'm glad you came up. The app is glitchy for me, so there's like a 30-second lag. So if I don't address you, if somebody comes up to speak, please don't take it personal. This app is trash. But anyway, where was I going with that? Oh, so like I tried to find a written definition of disclosure. Like I'm like, okay, so if we have a definition, has it been printed anywhere? Is it on any public facing government websites that actually like out?
To answer your question,
It is
it is now. It actually is in the NDAA. I've looked and they have defined terms now, and disclosure is defined. It is now.
beautiful.
What
If you
is what
could
is
share
disclosure,
that,
Theo?
that would be great.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but yeah, keep finish misanthropy, and I'll go throw it up there. But yeah, these terms are outlined by Congress.
See, so that's what I was looking for, because like on what was it, the Pursue, like the government, the Department of War, where they released, I looked for it there, and like there's certain things that allude to it. But even talking with a couple different AI, I'm like, can you find it anywhere on any of these public facing sites? And even AI couldn't really locate that for me. So I'm glad you know where it is, Gandalf, because I've tried to find it. I can't find it. So it must be buried in a piece of legislation somewhere that most people aren't going to go look for unless they're digging through the archives, right?
Yeah, you won't nerd like me because it's literally buried in the archive.
So like Grok defined disclosure as it refers to the anticipated official acknowledgement and public release by governments, especially the US government, of previously classified or withheld information about UFOs, including evidence related to non-human intelligence, advanced technologies of unknown origin, crash retrievals, reverse engineering programs, and related activities. So that was what Grok came up with to try and summarize for me. You know, what's interesting as far as crash retrievals and stuff go, chain of custody is important. Just from the little bit of research that I've done, and there's a lot more knowledgeable people inside this community than me about this, but a lot of the chain of custody all went out to like civilian black projects. A lot of the things that even had a sniff of maybe being authentic to me all pointed to being passed over to people that were not inside the echelons of government anymore. So if that's the case, you know, what are we doing? It's kind of hard to ask for disclosure too, if you know that that kind of buffoonery is going on. So yeah, I'm going to land there. Ash, you've got your hand up. Do you want to jump in?
What's up, Ash? How
Yeah.
you doing, man?
Hey, thanks, guys. I'm doing well, thank you. I just wanted to mention, so with regards to the sort of like definition of disclosure and other terms, um, Burleson's amendment that was recently passed does have some verbiage that sort of defines the different terms, like technology of unknown origin, um, crash retrievals, like they sort of narrow things down to a certain scope to pass this thing into law. So it's out there now in a clearly defined way in a proposed amendment. It still has to clear the Senate. It's very odd to me that the administration is seemingly very hesitant to take any substantive action. Trump has been like a shoot first, ask questions later kind of president from the get-go. He has been like almost reckless, and this has led to a lot of his executive orders being challenged. He's tested his authority at every possibility. So why isn't he doing this now? Why are we only getting a directive out of the executive branch and not an executive order as it pertains to disclosure? That to me signals he doesn't quite know what to believe. And I don't think that they have a full grasp of the situation right now. Burleson, just a couple days ago, was highlighting the pushback that he's receiving. Same thing with 𝗬𝗏, that they're essentially being blocked by the deep state. Simultaneous to this, we have ODNI announcing that there's people going like, there's mass firings going on. They issue these press releases like, we are cutting these horrible people from the intelligence apparatus. But really what's happening is they're shuffling these people to CIA. Out of these firings that occurred, 6 people were retired and 50 people transferred to CIA. I couldn't find like anybody that was actually fired. So it seems like there's some kind of power struggle going on. To land my plane here, I would note that that the first thing that Trump did on day one of 2025 of his second term, the first executive order that he issued was revoking security clearance of 50 individuals in the intelligence community. The first name on that list of that executive order just happens to be James Clapper. Um, I think it's a little premature to assume that Lou is going to be involved in the administration. I think that there's going to be a lot of money involved with lobbying and disclosure related foundations, sort of think tanks. So I think it may be premature to assume that anybody's landing, in some sort of role of czar. Just, kind of wanted to put that out there.
I agree with you. You know what's funny about that whole thing is I think that like there is no perfect person. Everybody is fighting over whether Lou should have the role. We don't even know if he really has officially got the role, right? Like you just said. And people are losing their fucking minds. Excuse my language. Just
Oh, one other point I wanted to make. The language from Trump's directive has not been released. We heard about this through Dr. Phil, and we still haven't seen the actual language. It's been like how many days now?
Ash, what do you think of
Disclosure, Phil.
disclosure? Ash, what do you think of like Trump's directive to like waive certain UAP related NDAs, but only on the condition that whistleblowers go to Arrow? Because as you know, like whistleblowers don't trust Arrow, and are they inviting like previous whistleblowers who have gone to Arrow in the past to go back now and for the second time with the waived NDAs? What do you think about that?
I don't think anybody's going to go to Arrow. At least, like no one that we know, nobody that's active in the space or is on social media. Maybe some poor unfortunate soul that's like long retired, like, in their 70s might stumble into this unknowingly and show up at Arrow. But I think that most people are kind of keyed into what's going on right now. There's two other options. There's ODNI with the new director Aaron Lucas, which obviously we haven't heard good things about him. It's almost like Darth Vader just put on his suit and took his ultimate form. And then we have Pursue, the Pursue Task Force, and we have no idea who's on the Pursue Task Force. There's not one public person named. I kind of tend to feel that like the Pursue Task Force is probably directly related to the ODNI governance board, this interagency group that is really being overseen by FBI and ODNI. But we don't know anything. We haven't seen the wording. We also we're expecting a directive from ODNI on this presidential directive that's going to get into specifics on their end. So those things are forthcoming. I was kind of hearing that we were going to see something today, but I think that like the situation is evolving in real time, and they don't even really know how to lay this out on paper yet.
do you think that the way Trump's handling disclosure has anything to do at all with the Epstein files? Because I do. I think that I had my misgivings about him being the disclosure president for my own personal reasons, just more because of his ego, because I was afraid that he would weaponize it and wield it like a weapon and use it to like distract people, which I feel like that's kind of what's happened a little bit. I mean, it fell out of the news cycle pretty fast, right? Everybody's talking about aliens now. No one's talking about the Epstein files. So I had misgivings about him being the disclosure president just from the beginning because I wasn't sure that he would be able to do it in such a way that would diminish his ego. And now I think that looking at all of this, I mean, we've kind of pivoted away from it and aren't really talking about it anymore. You very rarely hear it mentioned in the news cycle. So, to answer your question, why didn't he do a presidential order? I don't know. Maybe that was part of the motivation, was that, if you give it all up at once, right, you don't have a con to play, or you don't have a cover for yourself. You give up your cover. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist for the most part, but when I look at some of the stuff and the way that it's played out, and theater, the personality conflicts and stuff that play out in the public sphere amongst a lot of these spokespeople and UFO talking heads, a lot of it looks like psychological operations to me, to my eye, where they're drumming people up, getting them excited for some type of nuts and bolts disclosure. And I think that the reality is, Ash, to answer you, that they really don't know. They have an idea, but they have maybe a thimbleful of knowledge of what is really going on. And to admit that, to really disclose to the American public, they're going to have to simultaneously tell people, we think that this is bigger than just craft and biologics. We also really don't have a bat to swing at it. We're not operating on an equal power field here, not coming from the same place. Which essentially you're going to have to be a government admitting that you're impotent in the face of a threat. So I look at it through that lens of that. I think that a lot of the gymnastics, manipulation, orchestration, the dragging of feet has to do with they don't really know to tell people either. Maybe that's why they brought in Dr. Phil, because how do you let people down gently, or how do you, tell people it's way bigger than biologics and crash craft? So yeah, so there's some hands. You guys can jump in because we've only got a few people. And if anybody in the room would like to come up and speak, please feel free to request a mic. It's glitchy. So if I don't see you, don't feel like I'm ignoring you. Just like maybe wave your hand or something, because I am scrolling up and down and taking a look. But yeah, jump in, gentlemen.
I remember my point earlier now. The government is going to have to admit that for 80 years, not only they've been lying to the American people, but they're going to have to admit that they've been appropriating funds. Let's just name a few of the crimes. They're going to have to admit that they've killed Americans to silence these secrets. I'm not saying Trump directly did, but they probably have. What's supposed to have died on them, but they're gonna have to admit that misappropriation of funds. They're gonna have to admit that they've been shooting these things down, because people keep asking, how do these things crash? They're so advanced. Well, they're not crashing. Most of them are getting shot down by electromagnetic pulse weapons, EMPs. Go Google 𝗬𝗏1 and 𝗬𝗏2. But the U.S. government has basically a nuclear weapon without the nuclear blast. It knocks out anything electrical, so they knock these things out of the sky. They kill whatever's inside of there. And then they go and they gobble it up, and then they rip it apart and they dissect it. So they're gonna have to admit all of that. They're gonna have to admit, and a couple more here, but they're gonna have to admit that they've made agreements, because we've heard this from multiple whistleblowers, that they've made agreements with at least one of these factions. I'm told that they're the Greys, but you're able to look that up yourself as well. And they're gonna have to admit that through this agreement that they allowed humans to get abducted. So there's a lot of stuff that the government's going to have to admit, and I think that's what they're trying to navigate through. Because it's not so much saying NHI are real and that they're here and there's a safety threat. Because I already know going out in the ocean, if I have a cut, I'm not going to go in the ocean because I could attract sharks. The real threat here is not from NHI, in my opinion. The real threat is people getting really upset, and I love, to land my plane here, Stanton Friedman called it the cosmic Watergate, and it really is. It's the cosmic Watergate. It's the biggest secret in American, or not American, but American and human history, in my opinion. And there really is no bigger. It's bigger than Epstein, in my opinion. It really is. I'm sorry to say it. I'm a victim. My family is of a sex offender, but in my opinion, it's just a bigger secret than that. So I think that all people are gonna have to internalize that and deal with that in their own way.
Ash, you've got your hand up. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say this, the government doesn't have to reveal anything. And if we look at how the government has conducted itself, like in modern history, they don't hold themselves accountable. They weaponize things against previous administrations, or they use it as political currency, or they use it to enrich themselves. And as part of any sort of disclosure, like one of the implications is legal counsel. Like there's like DOJ lawyers and shit that look at liabilities on the part of government, and they sort of have to make, the administration ultimately has to make these decisions as to, like, is this worth the liability for us? How do we reconcile this? And also, there's a whole team of people around them, like Stephen Miller and Dan Scavino, that look at things through the lens of how can we use this. That's politics for you. So yeah, like they are definitely they're going to try and use this. Miss Anthrop, you made a really great point with regards to Epstein and like mistakes that were made. Trump issued that executive order. It was his conventional sort of like move fast and break things mentality, that he adopted from his tech overlords. And he signed this executive order and he opened up a fucking can of worms for himself. Pardon my language. But he he didn't anticipate what was going to happen, that the other side would then take this order and say, you guys are not following the law. You aren't releasing the documents per your own order. And so that created this, this conundrum for the administration where Trump, I'm sure, like face palmed and like sat awake many a night going, why did I do that? So, like maybe they learned from that to some degree. And yeah, they're also like there has to be an angle, like, how do we weaponize this? And how do we monetize this? Like, how can we use this to the best of our ability? I've been watching the speculative markets very closely lately. Anything pertaining to like these shit coins on disclosure, and any sort of poly market or Kalshi type betting markets, because somebody on the inside is going to make a great deal of money off of disclosure. So if you want to have like your ear to the railroad track, so to speak, watching those things, I think is going to give you sort of like some advanced idea as to when something's substantive is going to happen.
So it's so funny you bring that up, Ash, because those Make Alien Great Agains guys, I know everybody's probably seen them around the community, schmoozing and like popping into spaces and holding their own spaces and whatever. I did a deep dive on them as soon as I came across them and looked at their coin, because I sat in a space and I listened to them talk about how they had diversified and their holdings weren't centralized and this was their cap and blah, 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 blah. And their bubble maps were atrocious and they weren't decentralized and they were basically committing affinity fraud in the UFO community. The guys both admitted that, they wanted to basically monetize truth, and they kind of couched their whole shtick as, if you buy in, we'll be able to ride the wave of disclosure. So it's that same thing you're talking about, Ash, of like people looking to capitalize on this whole thing. And there's a lot of that happening right now. There's a lot of people looking at this landscape and going, it's the same thing with the Nazca mummies. They knew that people had most human beings are imbued with a desire to know the truth about the world they live in, with the reality that surrounds them. So anything fantastic like the Nazca mummies or, aliens and UFOs, like that taps a very primal question, I think, that most people come to at some point in their life. And that is what you're seeing right now, is people recognize that. So I tell people to really be careful, especially experiencers and contactees, where they share their stories, who they share their stories with, who they allow in their orbit, that a lot of people that will pretend to be their friend to get close to them because they see their story as some type of money pig, and look at it as a way that they might be able to capitalize on that. So you're very close there. You're hitting the mark, but I'll land there. You guys go ahead and jump in. We've got hands, so everybody feel free to speak up.
Hey, I just would want to mention, there's this orbit of people around Barron Trump, social media influencers like Aiden Ross and several others that move substantive amounts of money around on speculative markets and in cryptocurrency. If you look at who's making the money in the current administration, and who in Barron Trump's orbit is making money in these markets, there's an interesting pattern that you can see that is that has overlaps with the Make Aliens Great Again movement that we're seeing. That's all I'll say.
And there's the incredible thing that we learned, that the Make Aliens Great Again people paid Matt Gaetz $10,000 to come into a space for 20 minutes, and all he did was fuck around. And that was wild, wasn't it? I don't know if you guys can remember that space, but yeah, it's
you know what?
crazy.
Here's the thing. Like, okay, you had Matt Gaetz in your space. That's fantastic. Does anybody remember that he got busted spending like $90,000 to pay for sex? Like, do we and like have Molly and cocaine parties with barely legal women? Like, this guy shouldn't be hoisted up by anybody as a paradigm of the topic. As far as I'm concerned, he burned his capital. So I was really disgusted. I listened to that space and it was a mockery of the topic. So, like, I'm not interested in the schemers and the people that are looking to like capitalize on this in any kind of way like that, especially crypto coins, because they are so unstable. I'm a tangible assets girl. I like my bullion. And I encourage people to go and invest in things like bullion. And if you can, if you live in a place, good weapons, good guns. I like my guns too. Like, there's a lot of things you can put your money in where you're not giving it to people on the internet. So
You know,
go ahead, Ash.
you know who else likes bullion? The Anunnaki.
And me. If you didn't know, I love bullion. I'll talk about that all day and another time.
Look, you make a good point that anytime there's unpredictability in the markets, gold goes up. It's a hedge against inflation, and I think that leading up to any sort of disclosure, you'll see movement in the gold market.
Yeah, I do too. And it holds its value pretty decent. Silver's the same if gold's too rich for you, but like, crypto's great. I actually research crypto. I have a couple friends that bought into Bitcoin at the very beginning, and they gave me the education then, and I've done my own independent research. And like, I like to invest and diversify into different things, but to me, it's just the return on investment is too treacherous. Like, I don't like high risk like that. I don't want to drop. I work hard for my money, and I don't want to drop like 5K, 10K in something and like try to ride it for a while and be stressing about should I sell or should I wait for the next high, and like, that to me is not fun. Like, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to invest in stocks that I can, that might be a little more stable. But yeah, I just want my two hard and fast rules. I joke about this from an elder millennial. Don't share pictures of your genitals with people on the internet, and be very wary of giving people on the internet your money. And that goes for the crypto bros. Okay. So yeah, I want to get to some more hands. So TJ's new. He's up to the panel. So TJ, do you want to jump in? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say I was vocal like from day one that I felt like ufology was being used to push the victims of the Epstein crimes out of the news cycle, and I feel like a detail in all the MAGA disclosure rollout that everyone overlooks is the fact that the original plan for aliens.gov was a database to report illegal immigrants, and when they saw the reaction it got on the internet, just aliens.gov, they realized they could harness it, and they pivoted the campaign towards that. And all of a sudden we have the rollout of the videos, and it shows that it's coming from a nefarious place. They weren't planning to do this originally. They saw the opportunity and they took it.
I agree with you. No, I totally agree. That was my biggest concern about Trump doing the whole disclosure thing. Like, when the news first broke, I was devastated. I was like, first I was in shock, and then the next, like a couple of days later, like I sat with it, and it was a nightmare for me. I'm like, oh my God, because the Epstein stuff had just broke. So I'm like, if this is really going to be how it goes and Trump's going to be the disclosure president, all this shit's going to fucking disappear. And they're going to wave this in our face as some kind of conciliatory kind of thing and distract everybody from it and just, make everybody get lost in the minutia. And I feel like that's exactly what's happened. That's why I respect people on this platform that speak up for victims of like sex trafficking. And I appreciate the women that work to try and make this platform safer for other people as far as that goes, because there are a lot of those types of predators here. So like, to me, my personal view of what's happening is this is all a pony show. It's all a circus. I don't think that the disclosure that people are looking for, that Congress or whatever has recently defined, is really ever going to happen for people. I think that they are going to work to make it look like they're trying to and still never give us anything like that. And I don't even want to call it soft disclosure or drip disclosure, because really the tranches have been shit, if we're honest. Like, there hasn't really been anything that's knocked my socks off. A lot of that.
They've even been misleading. A couple times they've been misleading. Like the first key video that did the news cycle was the parachute flare video, and they changed how long they let the video play later on in the campaign because it shows the parachute up at the top of the screen. They're being nefarious with those videos. The other one was the China balloon being struck, and they said it's a UFO getting shot down. They know that's the China balloon. So they're even trying to be deceptive with these videos.
Yeah, so that's why I encourage people to like not get wrapped up in the like the personality conflicts that we're asked to pick sides in, because I think that is just another tool that they use to pull people apart and not have people hone in and focus on what we really should be demanding from them, and that's like full transparency. Like there were some drops in the tranche and a couple of them where it was like 5 or 6 pages of a PDF and they were all completely blacked out. Like, what's the point in posting that? What's the fucking point? Why would you even waste space on your server with that bullshit if you're just going to black the whole fucking paper out? That makes zero sense to me. So like, it's all very performative. But I'm probably, and I've told Intra this, and it's kind of a joke between us, like I'm the worst person to be like go-go UFO and cheerleader for disclosure. I'm probably one of the most jaded people on the platform. I really only,
Me too. I'm a stick in the mud.
yeah, and it's okay, because I think that you need you need a counterbalance to the fervor. You need people, and that's why I try to support, people that are skeptics and even the debunkers, at least the good faith ones, because you need a counterbalance. Can't be in an echo chamber. That's not good either. Like, you got to be able to hear differing views, and you got to be able to, take those things in. One of the things that there's a quote that I just want to share with the room that I would have everybody hold on to going forward is a quote by Alvin Toffler. And I say it a lot and people probably get sick of hearing it, but it's the illiterate of the 21st century won't be those that can't read or write, but those that can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. So, yes. And with that, I've got 2 hands. I've got Gandalf and I've got Enter. So you guys, Tio, if you want to go first, or
Go ahead, Tio.
Oh, I think my hand was bugged. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so like I want to ask the room, like, to you, what was the last important moment in the disclosure process? Because like all we've got at the moment, we've got like the fight between like Ross, 𝗬𝗓, and Lou. We've got like the videos that are mostly balloons and birds. I mean, like out of all the videos and all the tranches, maybe there's like 5 videos in total that are interesting. And they're not coming from the correct sources. They're coming from like the FBI and like stuff that 𝗂𝗏 has like provided to them. But like, to me, the most important like point in this disclosure process in the last like few months has been the Washington press conference organized by James Fox and Leslie Kean, where David Grush stood there and like, and I think he did like an interview, I can't remember who it was with, like a day after or 2 days after, and he said that he has seen photos of alien biologics. So like, this is where we should be focused on. Like, there's so much like distractions with everything that's going on with like 𝗬𝗓 and Lou. That's all people are talking about at the moment. It's just like, I just want to cancel all that shit out. It's just egos. It's just like bullshit. we need to focus on David Grush and these photos. This is where Congress should be focusing on. This is what everybody should be focusing on, because if David Grush really saw these photos of biologics and you've seen evidence of these crash retrievals and bodies, that is what people want, and that is what people will accept as disclosure.
Welcome.
For me,
Go ahead, Tio. Go ahead.
To answer your question, Interstellar, for me, the first tranche when it came, like, that was huge for me. Like, I remember I felt it in my body. I forget the term, when you get chills throughout your body, you get goosebumps, stuff. Like, I felt it. It was huge. And then we had like over 1 billion clicks on it. That's like 3 times the population in America. So that means everyone around the world is clicking on it. It's not just Americans. I mean, it's a global thing. So it's very popular. And then to use like an analogy, we saw the same thing happened with the JFK files, like all the file drops, the JFK files, the Epstein files. We saw basically, I'm just using, like, being vague here, but like around 80% regurgitated information and maybe 10, or 20% new information. And you had to sift through that. And I've sifted through that. But in these tranches, even though I don't like that word, it's like the same thing. For the most part, all of the videos, even though they're not compelling, they are new. There are some in there where the videos are corroborated with radar data. There is I think it's what's it called, a range Fowler report and a FBI report where they went, and I forget this whole story, but Merrick von Redenkamp's talked about it. But basically, the FBI chased a UFO, like an orb, and then the UFO started chasing them, and they have radar data to back it up. That's a big case. So there is stuff in there. I forget the last point I was going to make, but if we sift through all of it and we look at and we narrow our scope down, there is new information. And what was huge for me, other than those first 2 drops, like, the second 2, I'm like, meh. But on the first 2, there was big stuff from the Apollo missions. When they went up to the moon, there was stuff up there.
Yes.
Yeah, that was huge for me. And then we all know, in my last point here, our good friend, the cat, he put up a image that I had never seen before of some blue thing up there on the moon. We had nothing up there on the moon, y'all. And so there is legitimate stuff up there. And the Apollo missions, I highly recommend people go back and through and listen to the people, the astronauts who went up to the moon and what they talked about, because that stuff was new. Not all of it, but some of it was new, and that was compelling for me.
Yeah, you're right, man. I forgot about the Apollo stuff. The Apollo stuff was very important, and like that was probably the most compelling evidence that we've had so far. But they didn't look like physical craft, did they? They looked more like paranormal stuff, or like or interdimensional, or whatever we describe it as. But I think there was wasn't there like testimony from, like, was it like the Apollo 17 where they said that the 3 lights was a physical craft? I think one of the astronauts said that it was a physical craft. And I think like maybe Elizondo said that in a recent interview as well. But yeah, cheers to you reminding me of that.
Well, and to that point, if that's true, like, so they forced those astronauts to carry that in silence, right? So they've had to walk around. They had to walk around with them. A lot of them now are, I think all of them, most of them are passed away. Had to carry that their whole lives without ever having any acknowledgement of what they witnessed while they were up in orbit. And that's criminal to me. That's the kind of the reason, like, if we ever do see what I would define as disclosures, where they just lay all their cards on the table and are finally honest with people, which I know is a pipe dream. It would really be for those people that, the pilots, the people in the military that have seen things and have had to carry it in silence, or astronauts that have had to carry it in silence. That's a lot. Just speaking from experience and how isolating, my experiences have been, and I know a lot of other people feel the same, that's really heavy. And then have to confine that knowledge to a group of people, and not be able to share it, like, with your spouses or anything. I mean, that's intense and criminal, I think. So we do have Wonder Just came up to the panel, and we've got Ryan, and we have some hands up. So Justy, you were first, and Ash, your hand is up. So I don't know if I'm glitching or if you want to jump in, and then we could go to Justy.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to Interstellar's question. Like, what is, like, what's really been like a watershed moment in disclosure? I wanted to get excited about the Pursue releases and that first presidential directive. But then I have friends that are like, so very close to this, and they were like, temper your expectations. Like they were not excited, and that to me like signaled like, oh shit, like most of the stuff that's been released has been in the public domain for a long time. Um, Almost everything. It's a pattern, that our government has maintained for decades. They quietly dump shit on the internet. Well, it hasn't, decades, prior to the internet archives and things like that, per federal statutes. But they just release enormous swaths of data. They don't tell anybody what's in there. And we've had all these UFO researchers, shouting from the hills for 10 plus years, like, hey, this information is real. The government released it, and nobody's really paid attention until the government officially highlighted it. So, realistically, that's kind of what Pursue did. It highlighted stuff that's already been in the public domain. Um, to me, the past week really has been the biggest deal, because you had news of this emergent directive from the White House. Um, it it's encompassing, it's not encompassing amnesty, more so it's just strictly talking about waiving non-disclosure agreements. And that again, to me, signals that they're trying to get like to the bottom of whatever is going on, and maybe they want to wrangle things in to some degree. And then secondly, Eric Burleson making this brave move of saying that anybody that wants to come forward should contact me or contact another member of Congress and have them accompany you to the reporting agency. And I think that that's huge, because I don't think that that was something that the executive branch was counting on. Uh, it seems to me that they want to maintain control and they want to keep this away from Congress. And keeping it away from Congress keeps it away from us. Like, we don't get truth. Whistleblowers don't get justice. They don't get their stories out there. And the executive branch would just as soon, maintain control over this. Give us a very sort of limited acknowledgement that, yeah, something's real, but yeah, we don't know anything. We don't know what you're talking about, and I think that they would just as soon do that. I think that there's a push, there's a struggle that's very real, and Burleson's statement highlighted that these whistleblowers need a third party representative of the people to accompany them to a reporting agency. Signals, that maybe we're in the end game.
That would be incredible. It's got to be hard. I mean, a lot of people can throw dirt at experiencers or whistleblowers, and tell them that they're doing this or doing that, or they need to do this or they need to do that. And when I look at these guys, to me, coming forward like that is a net negative. It totally ruins their lives for the most part. They have their clearances revoked. They won't be hired by people, like they get blacklisted. So I feel like, you're right. We don't offer them enough protections, and maybe having a third party representative or even a team, cross representation would be a smart thing to do for these whistleblowers, so that they aren't coerced, manipulated, intimidated, threatened, etc. Because, I can't imagine if any of these stories paint our government in a negative light, like Gandalf mentioned earlier, the potential for agreements, or turning the other cheek and allowing abductions, which, especially with the Greys, I've very rarely heard any positive stories about those particular entities. So,
Yeah.
if all of that,
Can I speak?
yeah, go ahead, Ryan. Welcome up to the panel. Go ahead and jump in.
There's something that I think people need to realize, and I don't have too many followers on X here. I just joined it a little while ago, and I don't like the format where you can't invite people to be friends like you can on Facebook. You just have to sit and wait for somebody anyway, there's something that people need to remember is that there are UFO gatekeepers. And one of those people is in a story that I posted today on my timeline, that people need to be aware of this name because not a lot of people are mentioning him. Not a lot of people are taking him as somebody that's involved in this, but I think it's clear that he is, and that's Dr. Ron Pandolfi. Ron Pandolfi is without doubt, in my opinion, one of the he is one of the people, one of the bureaucrats that has the keys. He has the keys to go anywhere he wants at any time regarding crash retrievals, regarding UFOs. He's somebody who retired years ago, but I heard a few things the other day. I don't want to say where I heard it, but he is still involved in this disclosure movement today. He's somebody who is basically acting as a CIA puppet master, a gatekeeper.
Okay, Ryan, we're not going to do this today, Ryan. I don't think it's appropriate in this space. Miss 𝗬𝗲𝗶, do you want to go to the next hands? I can't remember who was next.
I believe 𝗬𝗲𝗃 was next, and then Tio, your hand is still up. So if you want to jump in after, and then Ash.
Yeah, so I just want to say regarding the whistleblowers, who's going to give them protection after? You know, I agree with you. Hello.
Okay, I've removed him from the space. Sorry, guys. Carry on, 𝗬𝗲𝗃.
Um, so yeah, so who's going to look after their families? Let's say they're worried about that. I think a lot of more protection should be offered. And I don't know why you booted that guy, but another thing is, if they were serious about disclosure, we wouldn't have these. I understand national security is involved, but they would have serious, like if let's say Trump is going to give some sort of disclosure speech, which I don't really believe he is at this point, not the way that they're rolling this out. They would have other people involved, like serious people explaining it to the public.
Better than
Um,
Boebert, like better than Luna and Boebert.
Better than the people, like I understand they got Dr. Phil involved. That's fine, but we need, like, he's right when he says that they need like psychologists and other people who are professionals who can actually take it over afterwards if there is going to be. But really, I'd like to see the words from the whistleblowers themselves. Like, we had those panels talking to us. We need more people or closer who do have the answers, who are allowed to talk about what they can talk about without breaking national security oaths and without, ruining national security, which I understand is very important. But we should understand what the nature of reality is. We should be let in on that secret, and um what our history is. This, if it's true, all of this is true, it's all part of lore. You know, if it's true, can we like get through all the mud and see to the bottom of the seafloor so we can actually see what the truths are? I like highly doubt that at this point, but I'd like to see some of them. And the only way to get to those is to really hear it from the people who are involved themselves. And I truly hope there's people who have been involved, maybe at the core end of this, who really do believe that we do deserve the truth and that they're at, the heart of all of this, because um, I think we can understand and take a lot of this, at least. you know, I'm hoping we can, and I'm hoping we get there, but I'm not too I don't really believe it at this point in the direction that we're going, to be quite honest. And I do believe like this whole Elizondo and Grush thing or whatever, all the little infighting. It's really not important. Really, what's important is what Interstellar said. It's like, why do we have these panels? Is it another roadblock so we don't get disclosure? That other people get contracts, they get tech, but we still don't get disclosure for another 80 years. So that's all I have to say.
I'm going to jump in there because, like, the other part of this that people that really became abundantly clear to me when I worked on the Mummy project. Dr. Wilson's a professor at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and moves in pretty intense academic circles. And when information is withheld, right? Academia is the foundation of our country, essentially, because that's where we educate all our young people, prepare them for the world, arm them with knowledge. So if there is information, things that relate to physics, things that relate to different sciences where we should be developing modalities to further our understanding, having this stuff withheld from the public has bigger consequences than just us not getting the answers that all of the seekers in this space are looking for. It means that our academics are stunted. It means that we can't explore hypotheses and put our best minds on these things to work through some of these problems and find some solutions and maybe explore some new physics or developmental physics. Like, all of that gets halted. So going back to the whistleblowers, they're doing us a service and they're sticking their necks out doing so. Have some of them been fed misinformation? Probably. Have some of them been misled on purpose? Probably. Are there some of them acting in bad faith? Yes. But then there are going to be the ones that have been shown real things and that are acting in good faith. And I think that that's how we should be treating them until they prove otherwise. And if that means that we have to, federally fund protective services for these guys to protect them from bad actors, then I think we could probably find the money to do that. We spend enough of it on bullshit anyway. So I feel like, we could find solutions. Everybody likes to talk about the problems, but we could do this, and this could be a possible thing. And you have a lot of these talking heads telling us no. So yeah, I do see more hands. Ursula, welcome. Do you want to jump in?
Hi. Hey, Misanthropy. Hey, Interstellar. Hey, everyone on the speaker
Hey, Urs.
panel. I'm a little bit nervous. I don't know why, but yeah. I just we have been talking about disclosure in the past few evenings, I guess, with some friends, and it's really awesome that you're holding a space about disclosure. And I think one of the things that I always kind of say is that, are we ready as a society for disclosure? And I always say, no, we're not. And this goes back into like the mental health aspects of all of this. I mean, you have to take a look at your family members and to see if they're ready. Talk about it with your family members. And I think I've been saying this for like a few years now. Like, if they know that something is coming, or if we people that are in these spaces know that something is coming, we should set up spaces to help people. But that's not happening. It's probably not going to happen, I mean, in case there's catastrophic disclosure. So I like the way that everything it's been like drip drop. Maybe it's a way to acclimate us in a way. I don't know. Maybe we're never going to get the disclosure that we want. But, there are a lot of us in this space that are experiencers. And I think we talk about it quite a bit. Like, are we ready? And I can say that even though I've experienced a lot, I still don't think that as people, you know, as a people that we want disclosure in reality. I mean, there's so much to think about, and for selfish reasons, I think that a lot of us do want it just because, to prove a point that, we aren't alone here. Um, but, in that there's a lot of, I think we are progressing though. I don't think I've ever heard people talk so much about UFOs. The masses, the commercials, just out there with the shows and everything. But you have to ask, if you have children, you have to ask them, because I have adult kids, and you ask them, do you think we're ready? And I think in our family we are, only because we've seen things in our house and in the skies. So, at that point, you have to have these conversations with your family. And I think a lot of people come here to feel safe, in telling their stories, because they don't feel safe telling it anywhere else. And that's why I really feel for the experiencers. If you're feeling like scared, there's those of us that can help you. That's my biggest thing is to be here for experiencers, to make them feel safe. But I think a lot of times, even us in this community, we don't feel safe, So, it's a sensitive topic, and I really, really want to thank Mrs. Anthropy for opening this space just to have these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ursula. I warn people, this was a very different app when I came in 2020. It was just a different place. It was a safer place. It wasn't as toxic. And because there is increased eyes on the topic now, and there's more traffic through, and you've got more people coming in, I warn people about speaking. Like, I would hold experiencer spaces, but I don't believe this app is safe for them. And I don't encourage people to share their stories here openly, publicly, because I have done that myself and been targeted for harassment, called schizophrenic, referred to in spaces derogatory, had my story weaponized against me. So there's this weird dichotomy that I see unfolding, and it's that you have a lot of people screaming for disclosure. But I posit the question to those people on the other side of that: what do you think comes next? Contact, dummies. Contact comes next. So you might want to start talking to the people, and yeah, I'm not saying believe every, schizo that comes in to tell a story, but like, there's people like me, there's other experiencers in this community that have been lifelong experiencers, have documented the post-abduction marks and injuries, have family bleed over onto their families, or their families have also have had the hitchhiker effect and experienced things along with them. I can say that for my own family, my husband in particular, and my oldest daughter. So, there has to be a shift in the attitude, before I think that it's really going to be appropriate for experiencers and contactees and abductees to really start speaking openly. I hope that changes. I would love to be able to host experiencer spaces like 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂 used to do back in the day, that I used to have a really good time in. And, it was it was supportive, and people were allowed to come in and dump what they needed to dump. And there was a network of people in the room that weren't going to judge them and that were going to be supportive. But I think now, especially hearkening back to what we were talking about earlier, you got a lot of predatory people in the atmosphere here. Not just here on X, but even like the whole thing with Kelly Chase and J. Christopher King. It just harkens to be guarded. I think we all kind of recognize each other, like there's a knowing when you run into somebody else that's had an experience similar to your own and you feel comfortable sharing, like, look for those people and just be guarded. Because this isn't a good environment for it. Hopefully that will change, though. Maybe we'll get there. But I've got more hands, and I don't know if it's glitches, but I see Gandalf, Ash, Justy, and Interstellar. So do you know who was first? Or?
Yeah. My hand's not up. I think Ash was next. Ash has been his hand up for quite a while. Go ahead,
Go for
Ash.
it.
Hey, thank you. Hey, one other thing I forgot to mention, that was really like very important that played out over this past week was James Erdman, former CIA officer, presenting himself as a whistleblower, testifying before the Senate about COVID origins. We came to find out that Mr. Erdman ran the dig investigation for ODNI under the directive of 𝗬𝗲𝗂𝗏. And the same person that was crying about obstruction was also in charge of the UAP investigation. Matt Brown bravely called that out. Matt made some comments about Mr. Erdman and essentially highlighted, the very real aspect of controlled opposition in this space. The infighting that we see, the narrative derailment. Like the like anytime there's some sort of spat with 𝗬𝗏 Elizondo, it results in a week of discourse and fighting, and it's really interesting. It would be very effective if that was the intent. Hey, I wanted to highlight Mr. Christopher Sharp is up on the panel with us. Chris, are you able to talk to us?
Oh, hi there. I just really enjoying listening to everyone. I think it's a great discussion. But yeah, keep doing what you're doing. This is brilliant. I'm really enjoying it. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, thank you for the work you do, man. You've been an amazing source of real news, non-disinformation in this space. And yeah, you've been digging really hard, man. So thank you for everything you've been doing. It's very much appreciated by the community, I'm sure, the world is really kind of following along right now. So yeah, thanks for what you're doing, Chris.
Thank you.
I have a question, that's always kind of bugged me, and it wasn't kind of, I think, addressed publicly properly enough. There's a description from Matthew Brown of an image of 𝗬𝗏 Elizondo in the pitch deck of the Immaculate Constellation document. It came after a page, with the nomenclature about, spillage and disclosures. It highlighted the agencies associated, and then apparently there's like this full page picture of Elizondo. I'd like to know, like, what are your thoughts of that image? Like, what are you inclined to believe as to its intent, like why it would be there?
That's a really good question. I really don't know. I have no good answers on that. There are some people who think they do know, potentially, and it's up to them to kind of speak up about that and provide evidence to back up what they believe. But yeah, I'll leave it to them. But currently, yeah, it's kind of like Socrates, basically saying that you don't know. I know that I don't know. So yeah, that's where I come at it from.
Thank you, man. That's an honest answer. Like we don't know, and it's something that's been very curious to me. Initially the kind of inclination was that it was to highlight a person, a persona non grata, to whatever sort of legacy stovepipe aspect that Immaculate Constellation may be. But then it made me think, like, why would you put that on paper? Like, why would you leave a paper trail of retaliation? If you were concerned that someday this could get into the public space, that would be pretty damning evidence, that somebody was conducting activity that they're not supposed to do. So yeah, it's just always puzzled me. But yeah, thanks for your thoughts on that.
Thanks for being here, Chris. I appreciate your presence, and everybody that's been hanging out in the space. Thank you all for coming. I don't get to host these very often because of my work schedule, but I'm going to try to do them on a more regular basis. I just brought 𝗬𝗏 up, and I do see some more hands. I've got 𝗬𝗏 and Ursula and 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝗏. So I think Ursula was first, and then maybe 𝗬𝗏 and 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝗏, and then we'll get to 𝗬𝗏, but I just want to kind of cycle through everybody. So please jump in.
Oh, 𝗬𝗏 can go before me. I think it's a glitch. Thank you.
Here, I'm going to drop down some more people and come up.
Thanks, TJ. Have a good night, TJ. So then maybe 𝗬𝗏 and then 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝗏 and then 𝗬𝗏.
Yeah, I'll keep this pretty short. Just a couple more points I wanted to get off my chest about disclosure. Um, what I'm fearful of is, a half disclosure. And so what I mean by that would be Trump does disclosure of some form, and then that's be hijacked by the Peter Thiels. And so, like, what do I mean? Right now, there's only like a handful of corporations actually involved. If you look up federally funded research and development centers, FFRDCs, Gerb and I have mentioned them a lot. There's only a handful of them. And so what I'm worried about is they mention them. People are like, oh, yeah, but I still have to go to work tomorrow. And then the only disclosure really is just for the Peter Thiels. They get their tendrils in there. And now their companies, have just doubled or tripled because, in my opinion, and other people can probably say this too, UAP and the technology of it's worth over $1 trillion, probably trillions, because it could easily change the oil industry overnight. So already right there, it's the entire oil industry. It wouldn't fully replace it, but it could. It's massive. It could change how we, just a couple, two more examples. It could change how someone needs a heart transplant. You could now go and ship it across the world in like 2 seconds. If someone's hungry and they're gonna die, or not hungry, but they need certain medication, boom, you can just transfer that immediately. It could change stuff overnight. And what I want people to just keep up, the last point, keep up the pressure. If we do get disclosure, and keep asking for more questions. Don't just like take the government's word for it, because it's not just their technology, it's everyone's. And so just because they played favorites and the Northrop Grummans and Lockheed Martins made, billions and tens of billions of dollars, it should be, that technology should be for the whole world. So those are the last couple points I wanted to make.
Well said. I agree with you 100%. Again, academia suffers. And the longer this stuff stays buried and hid behind the walls of, whatever, we're we're hurting ourselves. It only hurts ourselves. So, 𝗬𝗓𝗏 and then Hollow.
Yeah, I wondered, Christopher, if you could answer a question. You said that in one of your posts that the White House is keeping silent and something big is coming. Do you have any thing to add to that? More to add to that? And I have
Hey, yeah,
another
sure.
question.
I don't know if something big is coming. I think they're currently discussing potential disclosure coming in a bit. Dr. Phil is in constant contact with Donald Trump on this, from my understanding, and he's even said that in his recent show. And he said that Trump is taking this very, very seriously. And he was describing his shock as well, saying, "Oh, they've lied to us for all these years and stuff." And he was saying, the people that he was speaking to, one could presume White House folks were basically just saying, "Well, yeah, well, this is the government. The government just lies about this stuff." So I think there is something going on in the White House at the moment. And I feel as though there's two scenarios. Either it happens and there's a speech or something along those lines, or it doesn't happen. And then maybe in about 5 years' time, when people speak about their time in the White House during this period, during with their bios and stuff and memoirs, you may have something like that mentioned. I'm quite sure that a speech does exist at this point. It's coming from many different unrelated sources. And that's kind of like the key thing that you're looking for, really, when you're trying to corroborate a piece of information, especially if they are, not connected. If it's coming from like the same circle of people, then you kind of like know that you have to carry on digging because they probably heard it from each other. So, yeah, we'll have to see if it plays out. I have moderately high confidence something like a speech does exist, but we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Okay, my other question is, personally for you, like I know that you hear things in the back channels. What is something that you could share with us that you find maybe kind of shocked you in a sense, or you were surprised by? Was there anything?
Um, Yes and no. I mean, the stuff with Lou, I've always been quite clear in my thoughts that there's a lot more to Lou than he can say. It's just that, if you get a 𝗧𝗶𝘁𝗃, it doesn't mean that you've got the intelligence community version of a 𝗧𝗶𝘁𝗃 to speak in regards to that. So, I mean, that didn't really shock me in terms of the discussion going on at the moment. I think what did shock me was the allegations that 𝗧𝗶𝘁𝗃𝗂 and Stephanie O'Sullivan, when they were in ODNI, were undertaking like a program to take down UAP and retrieve them. That really, really shocked me. And it wasn't one of those things where it was just coming from people who had a score to settle with Clapper. It was coming from people that you wouldn't expect, people that actually did like Clapper as well. So that's kind of like why I went ahead and published that story. It's very, very interesting. But hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, well, when you say they're taking down UAP, where are the UAP themselves coming from? Did you get any of that information?
I didn't get any of that information, unfortunately. As much as you want to go into detail and ask those kinds of questions with sources, I think sometimes they do have an agenda. They just want to put that bit of information out, and they know that's all they're going to give you. And as a journalist, all you can do is just corroborate and then kind of like make a judgment call in terms of how much weight those sources who corroborate that carry. So yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get any more on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Can I
I
just-
want to go
Sorry.
ahead.
I just wanted to ask Chris one question whilst he was speaking. Chris, what do you think of 𝗏𝘁𝗃𝗃's claims that he has seen photos, and I think he's used the words audio and visual, didn't he, of like of alien biologics? And do you think that we're ever going to see that in the near future?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Trump is, in that respect, I guess, a first-hand witness. I think there's a lot more to Dave than we know as well in terms of what he can and can't say, just like others like Lou, for example. I don't know if we're going to get that. I think at the moment they're quite comfortable. I mean, even 𝗂𝗓𝗏, who we've gone after a lot this week. So 𝗂𝗓𝗏, even Tim Phillips, who used to be acting director of the Arrow, they're very, very comfortable in saying that, qualified pilots, and I think even 𝗂𝗓𝗏 was talking about submariners as well, are seeing stuff under the sea, in the air, and in space, which have kind of characteristics that can't be explained and capabilities beyond anything that is American or adversary. So they're very, very comfortable saying that. But when you get into the special access programs and controlled access programs, it's kind of like an immune response going off, and then that's when they start calling them grifters, liars, disinformation agents, stuff like that. So if those photos, if they exist, if they are kind of like classified and they have some, they're locked away within some of these programs, then I'm not sure how far they're going to go into the special access and controlled access programs if we do get disclosure.
Yeah, I mean, like, because if Grush really has seen those photos, then he's also going to know who showed them to him and like where to find them. And like something like that, like seeing photos of biologics, is not going to jeopardize any national security. So I think that is where like the disclosure effort should be focused, and that would present like proof to the public that we are not alone, and that's really all we care about. Like, and we can get like, there's so much going on in ufology at the moment, as you know, and like it's easy to get distracted with all the noise, and we just need to focus on what's important. And like, I hope that like Grush can somehow like bring these photos forward and present them to the public. But thank you, Chris. Thanks for the question. 𝗓𝗏𝗃𝗃, I can't remember who was next. I think it was 𝗧𝗶𝘁𝗃𝗃, was it?
Yeah, it was Hollow. So welcome to the stage, Hollow. Go ahead and jump in.
Hi there. Thanks for holding the space, 𝗓𝗏𝗃𝗃. I really do appreciate you focusing on solutions. I'm all about it. I'm a kind of nuts and bolts kind of guy. How's my audio doing? Am I coming through clear?
You're good.
Cool.
Yep, you're good.
So I really want to kind of like address just the overview of disclosure defined. At least from my perspective, we have like 6 different categories to try to tackle, and they're not necessarily easily isolatable. They're kind of intertwined, as we all kind of know at this point. But the first one, I was just going to do a quick sort of title overview on these, but the psychological operations, I think, and disinformation, narrative control is an important component of this, where we have to kind of like egos aside and all this internal battling. We just need to tackle point by point basis. Where's the evidence? Okay, does that comport well with what we know? And then let them settle out, and I'll give a few examples as we go down here. But category number 2 to me is the physics, math, and advanced science, technology, and material area, and I'll circle back to that. The third area is the funding, so black budgets, tradecraft, as Grush called it, oversight failures. It's an important one because, you know, if we can follow the money, we can generally see who's doing what. 4, I think, is something that should fascinate us all, is the historical components. So, you know, does it just go back to World War II? Or, you know, do we go back to Magenta? Because as we know from Grush being on Joe Rogan, he was only sanctioned to talk about the Magenta crash. When Joe pushed him, he said, that's the only one I'm allowed to talk about. That's not necessarily the earliest one. And I know me and Jay Just have been in rooms with Doty, and, you know, take it for whatever it's worth. He has indicated at least that there are many other, Jason Sands as well, there's many other quote unquote archaeological based so-called quote crashes. I think the 5th category here is what kind of NHI types are we really dealing with? We've heard of sentient plasma life. We've heard of the 4 sort of categories of Greys, Nordics, reptilians, insectoids, or mantids. And I think, you know, that's something in its own category. Then, you know, they're obviously important to some degree. And I think there'll be people that will kind of aggregate to the interests and topics that are, you know, important to them. And the 6th one is like really the involvement with the sort of human design and our true origins is, you know, the real historical root point that I think is troubling. If we remember what Carl Nell said at the Seoul conference, I'm not sure if that was 24, 20, I think that was 24, he said 2024, where he said basically that he had zero doubt that they were here and that they've been here for a long time. So that's kind of interesting to me, right? And one of the things that pops up when I circle back to the math physics area, and I've been following 𝗬𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂 for some time, and he's quite instrumental in prying open the door of this, what I'll call a bridge between what we can sort of infer is happening in the Black Project covert areas of science and technology, because he's the only one who's actually tried to broach this topic in a peer review manner. And what did we see happen? I'm sure you're all familiar with the Eric Davis interview where 𝗬𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂 was there. I think Jesse Michaels was there, Missile Man was there. This was the so-called salad event, if you will. And he says quite blanketly that 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 that's not even that to me is a sort of, you know, I don't want to go over the top here, but that's defiling somebody's academic credentials for one, in misleading the public's ability to take, you know, this information and digest it in any meaningful way, because he's essentially dissuading you from looking at this person by saying he doesn't have credentials, which he's published with some pretty serious folks, notwithstanding, but Giovanni Modenese published a paper with him on impulse gravity generator, which is also a monumental paper in the litany or lineage of this new way of thinking about gravity. So we've been, I've been watching this like a hawk for probably more time than I'd care to admit, but I'm watching very carefully how the narrative is being spun around all this. And it is fascinating, but also concerning. And I could land there, but there's a lot of other interesting things that I could bring up, like the WikiLeaks release of Dr. Edgar Mitchell to John Podesta talking about neutrinos, specifically tau neutrinos. I would, if I had more time, I would go off on a whole tau neutrino thing, but I digress. There's something that connects in his mind, and was the only one doing noetic science out of all the astronauts. And he was saying in this letter that we wouldn't have if it wasn't for WikiLeaks. So props to Assange. That this tau neutrino, from his mind, connects us with psionics and over unity types of energy production. And needless to say, without going into any great detail, there has been some very mysterious tau neutrino events, at least 7 recorded down at the ice cube array in Antarctica, which we don't have a very good explanation for at this point. But I'll land there. And if anyone has any questions, or I'm just kind of doing my little rant here, I appreciate you all listening. Thank you.
No, that was amazing. You made a lot of good points. You need to connect. I don't know if you follow Osnap. He's on the speaker panel now. Like, you two need to get together and riff. He's going to be hosting a history space coming up. Him and Grider, and I know there's somebody else I'm missing. That's going to be. Go ahead, Gene, and Gene's on the panel too. So like, I have a lot of hands. So first it was 𝗶𝘁𝗶𝘁𝗃. So I want to welcome Paul, and then we'll go to Gene, and then I want to try to get back to some of the other people that are in the room. I see your hand too. Jessie, I see your hand. But Paul, if you want to jump in, welcome. I hope you're doing okay tonight.
Yeah, thanks. I am, and you as well. Thanks for hosting the space. I came in a little bit late. It's nice to see a proper kind of civil discussion. I think Hollow brought up a lot of great points. I'm gonna try to just be concise. Chris Sharp, it's great to see you, in the Twitter Spaces, and my question to you is really simple. When we discuss the concept of disclosure, right, which is, obviously a multifaceted sort of word, very loaded, I'm curious about your personal feelings, your personal sense as to whether we are headed toward any sort of cultural shift, whether that's disclosure, quote unquote, or as Bigelow talks about, confirmation, or any type of like real moving of the needle, the Overton window when it comes to this stuff. And if yes, how would that come about? And obviously, if not, yeah, just curious on your personal feelings regarding the realistic possibility of an actual shift in the cultural dialogue surrounding this complex topic. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you very much for the question. So there's different aspects around this. From my understanding, Bigelow said that he was going to push Trump for a soft disclosure, and that was in December 2025. As some of you may know, Bigelow actually contributed millions to Trump as well during the campaign. I think it was actually for like a court case or something like that. It had something to do with legal costs. So I think he's trying to. I think he thinks that Trump might owe him a favor. Around the same time, December last year, I think that's come out in Pursue now. Actually, I've reported on it, and it's something that Jordan Flowers had brought up in terms of an event that happened over a test range, and that basically they had baited a UAP, and ODNI and FBI were there to witness that. And in addition, you've got various kind of like advocacy groups and stuff like that coming at it from different positions. And I feel that like when the first tranche came out, I feel that Trump and his administration saw an opportunity. They just saw how popular they were with the amount of people that engaged with them. So I think they probably just see an opportunity in terms of kind of. Well, Trump is obsessed with basically he's got a huge ego, and he just wants to cement his place in history. I feel that history won't look too kindly on him at the moment. with all the trouble he's got into, especially with Iran and a lot of the controversies surrounding him and his personal life and his conduct and whatnot. But I think he sees that maybe this is my opportunity just to be remembered for this. But there's so much relating to this. I see Peter Phil brought up again as well by various people. And yeah, he's an advocate in terms of he wants UAP disclosure. For better or for worse, I don't know. He's probably got his own interests. There's a lot of people who
Chris, how is
stand
he
to make a lot of
advocating?
money.
If you don't mind, how is he advocating?
Yeah, so I mean, so there are people in positions within the administration, let's say, who are very, very closely linked to Peter Phil. I know that he's held at least one event relating to disclosure of getting people together. Michael Kratsius, the science advisor to the president, used to be Phil's chief of staff. J.D. Vance used to work with him. And I'm betting there's a whole load of other people as well who are basically involved with Peter Phil too. So look, there's a whole lot of different agendas when it comes to this.
Do you think he shares? Do you think he shares J.D. Vance's view on the advocacy? It's interesting that he advocates for. He doesn't support what Vance says, does he? Or is that like an angle we should think about?
Oh, I think they're obsessed with demons. I mean, if you look at Phil's own views when it comes to this, he thinks they're demonic and stuff like that. And you see Vance just echoing the same thing. So I don't think they're unconnected. But look, for me, I'm just trying to report the story as balanced as I can. Although I do say, and I'm very honest, that I'm for disclosure and I'm for the whistleblowers. But I realize also, and I'd be very naive not to realize, there's lots of different agendas behind this, good and bad. I feel there's a schism at the moment. I feel that there's one group that just kind of like want disclosure and they want to move on and say, let's move forward, whatever crimes may have been committed. And then there's another group who basically like, look, well, you've ruined people's lives. You've carried out, you may have murdered people. You've carried out illegal programs and stuff like that potentially. And look, justice has to happen. I think at the very least, I think whistleblowers like Dylan Borland should get some form of compensation. I mean, there's multiple people that I know of who are struggling to pay off their mortgages at the moment. And it feels like they've been blacklisted and they can't get any other jobs and stuff. So I feel that you've at least got to go that far. Yeah, those are just my own personal thoughts anyhow.
Well, real quick, Chris, thank you for the response. You covered a lot of bases. If you will, do you personally like have any sort of intuition, again, in like your optimism or pessimism regarding any type of shift in the public discourse, no matter how it comes out? I understand that there are very like step-by-step kind of things that we have to address, like whistleblower protection and all the things that Hollow mentioned. But when it comes to what people call, disclosure, a disclosure day, Spielberg type event, I think some people, myself included, maybe fantasize about something like that. But I personally tend to be quite cynical. So do you foresee any type of just any kind of shift personally when it comes to, like, I guess the shift is already occurring, but yeah, do you have any like personal feelings about that? I understand that you're a journalist and you're just trying to report, but any like personal opinions that you'd be willing to offer would be fascinating to me, and I will shut up there. Thank you again.
Sure. I mean, there is a circle of people who think that it's kind of like 50-50 that Trump's going to give a speech at some point, and it will be like a big announcement. It could be that he shares a podium with people when it comes to that, who go over next steps. And yeah, I don't know. It's really difficult, but there are certain people who do think that. As I said before, I think that there is a speech. It's coming from too many people who are unconnected, as I said. And when you hear Dr. Phil speak, I know it seems so silly saying Dr. Phil speak when it comes to politics and UAPs and stuff like that, but love it or hate it, this guy has direct access to Donald Trump, and he seems genuinely concerned that there's going to be some ontological shock, and the mental health infrastructure in the US may not be able to potentially cope with this. So yeah, it's really, really difficult. And as we know, plans may change all the time. And when it comes to the discourse and how this might come out, I mean, we just got to look at Trump's kind of like track record. It's an absolute dysfunctional kind of like White House. You've got the media team basically going crazy with these like meme graphics and stuff like that to do with aliens. You've got the aliens.gov, which is complete clusterfuck basically. So and also you had the Iran war. From my understanding, the UK and some other allies didn't even know the US was going to strike when it was going to strike Iran. So with that chaotic nature and that track record, it makes you kind of like fear for how this may come out as well, if it does.
Thank you. I'll step down for other speakers, but I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Chris. Chris, I really appreciate you entertaining questions. I hope you don't feel put on the spot. And obviously, if you don't feel comfortable answering, that's totally okay too. I think people would respect that in this space. So I wanted to get to Gene. Gene, welcome. I heard about your Montauk artifact experience and hope you're still doing well. I would love for you to jump in and get in on this.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. I'll give Chris a minute to get a drink or what as whistle as it might be before I dive in with a couple of questions. But yeah, I'm doing well. We're 5-6 days from the experience, let's say. Still have no pain. I was out walking for about an hour yesterday. We went to a museum. I was up and downstairs. Again, something I haven't done in 3 years. I'm a little sore by the end of the day, in so much as it's like physical therapy. I'm going around walking. But the appointments are getting all set up to go in and actually do the redo the nerve study, have the MRIs on my back again, see if there's actually any actual physical changes. And sorry, the black hot helicopter that flies over my house a couple of times a night is back again. But we'll yeah. So feeling great. I met another friend today. Who again has sort of only known me between the wheelchair and the cane, and he saw me and he's like, "What the fuck?" And told him the story, and his mind's blown. So yeah, I appreciate it. So Chris, again, good to speak with you. Thanks for fielding some questions. I have a couple that I hope will be short. First and foremost, have you heard any rumors on a video that's already been some kind of piece that's already been filmed that includes Elizondo, Elon Musk, and Obama discussing this topic, possibly at MIT Lincoln Labs?
Oh wow. No, that's actually the first time I've heard about that, but I can definitely check it out for you to see if there's anything behind that. That does certainly seem interesting. And
Yeah.
also, as well as about the health and stuff, it's something we can never take for granted, and hope that you're on the road to recovery now. It's tough. I've got primary reading epilepsy, and I struggle to speak sometimes and do anything which is linguistic. So yeah, health is something you can never take for granted, and we've always got to remember that we're all human.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. And no need to dive into it. Just something I was curious if it made it into a sort of wider circle of discussion, considering the progression of everything. But I think it's something, I'll just be looking for signs and signals of in the next couple of months. So I wanted to just kind of frame around this Trump speech idea and share and share a thought, an assessment, and get your views on it. So, we heard from Elizondo himself. He's moving to DC. Obviously, that's probably going to be related to some sort of position. Let's assume that manifests sometime late in August, coinciding, give or take a week around Reckoning's release. And we see him move into a quote unquote official role somewhere, whether it's in ODNI or as this is our figure that we've been discussing. But later in September, the 22nd, I believe. So if we consider a few weeks of him sort of being in that position and with all the other activities going on, there's the UN General Assembly. Trump's going to speak at that. What are your thoughts about using the UN General Assembly as a forum to make this sort of soft disclosure speech, framing it in the, as the U.S. leading this effort for humanity, widening the, opening our arms to international cooperation and information sharing and things like that, considering that Trump does like to emulate Reagan. We have the famous Reagan asking Gorbachev if aliens were invading a speech. This year's 39 years from that. Next year, obviously September, the next General Assembly is a much shorter time frame going into the presidential election. Well, we're actually in the election cycle at that point, um, and that could certainly be a calculus as well. But in general, between that idea of using the General Assembly as the forum for soft disclosure, framing it as something for humanity. What are your thoughts about that as a possibility versus the optics of just like an Oval Office speech?
It's certainly really, really interesting. And if there are discussions of how to do this currently happening in the White House, I'm guessing that might be on the table. I do know that in 2019, it was kind of like an unofficial Chinese effort for disclosure. And the plan was, because I think they did 2 symposiums, one in China, the other in Moscow, in Russia. And from my understanding, the aim was to bring it before the United Nations and do disclosure that way, together with different nations. And that's kind of like how you got this. I think it's called the ISA, where you've got like Paolo Guzzardi was part of it, who was trying to lead the San Marino efforts in terms of bringing disclosure before the UN. Well, a lot of people within his kind of like group, they were brought together by that Chinese initiative in 2019. So that's certainly interesting, and something to consider. Yes.
And do you think, just building on China and Russia, because they're, I believe, also in September, if not August, they're getting ready to sign some major cooperative agreements on defense and things like that. So it seems like with the defense news, particularly about directed energy weapons and things like that, that has sort of come to the forefront. We've seen China and Russia team up a little bit more on that development, and it's been less quiet in a lot of the Western press. They're getting ready to sign an agreement about this, that particularly. Would you think that there's any interconnectivity between all of those factors in the 2019 talk as well, or you think those are independent issues?
Well, I guess historically, China and Russia do share technologies, and particularly when it comes to jets and whatnot, China had a lot of catching up to do. It's leaned on Russia quite a bit. So, I mean, it could be part of that. But I mean, if there is talk that what we're seeing over the East Coast, some of the triangles that are being seen are Russian and Chinese, and the Americans have their own version of the triangles. And from what I've been told, there is kind of like a mixture of non-human triangles and UAP, and then you've got the Russian ones, you've got the Chinese ones, and the American ones as well. And the key thing is it's the power source. That's the power source is the most kind of like most guarded thing. But it's also really, really interesting as well, because if you believe Matthew 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗏, the guy who committed suicide, let's say, outside Trump Hotel in his Tesla, I believe he was a Green Beret, and he was working on drone technologies before he died. And he made a manifesto which basically claimed that a lot of the stuff that was being seen over New Jersey was Chinese, and it was kind of like anti-gravitic. And it was basically game over for the US, because these things could carry an unlimited payload and drop it on the US. And I believe that manifesto was actually classified after it came out by the Pentagon, which is really, really interesting. And I was asking Goff for a quote again and again on that, basically saying, why did you classify this? And she actually was trying to direct me to the Las Vegas Police Department for an answer or something like that. I'm like, what? Well, they didn't classify it. It's like, oh my gosh, I've gotten so many debates with Sue, both over email and on the phone as well. One day someone's going to FOIA this stuff and steal my typos and stuff, and me just getting angry with her and stuff. But yeah, that's where I am on that. But yeah, I mean, it also kind of aligns with Matthew Brown as well. He spoke of some cases where you've got like ships in the Atlantic and stuff, like Russian spy intelligence ships, and there's like triangles basically seemingly rendezvousing with these ships. So yeah, it's worth bearing in mind, and it's it's an interesting kind of like theory I have about all this stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's very consistent. If you're not familiar with Whistling Mike, who recovered materials from one of those anti-gravitic drone crafts, and has been back and forth with the government about the results of those and the what he's been able to identify with it. All that you just said is very consistent, I think, with the findings and experiences that he's had. And hopefully we'll be seeing and hearing more from him on that here soon. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Gene. Those were really good questions. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this again and to try and absorb everything. Snap is kind of, the brains. He's a nuts and bolts guy, and I really like learning from him and other people like him in the community, because I focus so much on the experiencer contactee side and the woo side and that kind of stuff. So I just find these kind of conversations fascinating, especially when you get people who are dealing with this in the upper echelons chiming in. So I really appreciate you, Chris, sharing knowledge with us tonight. Ursula, I think you've got your hand up if you wanted to jump in, and I'm glitching with hands on my side. So if you do want to speak, just kind of chime in and let me know, because I'm seeing hands that Inter's not seeing. So yeah, go ahead, Urs.
Yeah. Hi, Chris. Again. I would like to ask a question. You're a journalist in this area, and do you ever have conversations with your family about the topic, about disclosure? I've always been curious about that.
Oh yeah, so my wife couldn't give a damn. She's too much into kind of like Korean drama and stuff like that, and gossiping with her friends. Uh, but I mean, it was quite funny because I did take her to the book launch for Jonathan Kaplan's book in London a few weeks ago, and in Jonathan's speech, like 𝗧𝗶𝘁𝗶𝘁𝗹𝗲 was there as well. He was so lovely. He got to spend time with Jacques and his wife. And during the speech, like I was with my wife, and Jonathan Kaplan thanked Jack, and then he thanked me as well. And I think he said something like, Chris has gone to enormous lengths, and he's kind of like risked his life or something along those lines. My wife just looked at me like with these eyes, just thinking, what have you got into? I was like, you don't know the half of it, but she just doesn't engage with this stuff. So it was kind of news to her, I guess. But my mum is an experiencer. Like I remember like my mum telling stories, and you always just think like, oh, that's rubbish or something like that. And this is before we had YouTube, and she claimed that because I grew up in Reading, which is in Berkshire in England, and we got a news channel called Meridian. And she basically claimed that I think in the late 70s or early 80s that the news was interrupted when she was watching it with my dad. And there was this like Ashtar command voice that started coming up, and it was like really scary, and everyone was just like really freaked out about it. And I was just thinking, whatever, mum, that's just like a tall story, you know, like that didn't happen. And then obviously, like when YouTube comes out and stuff, like that video just circulates. It was like, oh gosh, like you were telling the truth. And she claims as well that she was followed by a truck, a black triangle in Reading. So yeah, she's kind of like had her experiences. My brother's had his experience as well. My brother's not very well. He's blind and he's got diabetes, but he talks to certain like members of the community. He's such a nice guy, and yeah, he's always had like poltergeist experiences and stuff like that. And my cousin as well has had kind of like experiences, like abduction experiences and stuff like that. And yeah, so you know, I always take that stuff really, really seriously, and I'm looking forward to, because if we do get like disclosure, I really, really do hope that we do kind of get something for and some answers for those experiences. I think it is something that you have to take seriously. I think there are people who are in positions of power who have been very, very senior in the military who get very, very upset, basically saying they're still taking our people, or something along those lines. And it's a very emotional thing for those, I feel, that who are in the know. So yeah, hopefully I haven't said too much. I've never said that before, but yeah, I just hope they get answers.
Wow, thank you. So your mom has had experiences with this phenomenon. Do you think, Chris, that there is a shift in feeling towards people that have experiences and like have contact with this phenomena on a personal level within the upper echelons? Are they looking at that at all, or do you think that's still pretty far in the horizon?
I hope it's coming. I mean, we always hear about the CIA being interested in experiences, and you know, it makes sense. You know, if you've got like Russia or China or Iran suddenly just taking Americans and stuff like that, you're going to want to know what their intentions are, what they went through, what the person being taken by those hostile powers may have seen, for good or for worse. So that kind of like fits the remit of CIA in terms of finding that out. Um, I do hope we get some answers, and I think just getting to first base, just an acknowledgement that some UAP are non-human, provides kind of like more credibility for experiences among the wider the wider population. Sorry, because I've seen firsthand how it's affected people's lives. Like 𝗓𝗂𝗧𝗏 is a really good friend of mine as well, and I've seen how it's affected his life. You know, his son got bullied at school and stuff, and yeah, I just hope that you guys just, you know, get the answers you're seeking, and yeah, I just hope you get that recognition.
Thank you. You know, for me, I'm very lucky in that I have a good support system. And because of the hitchhiker effect, like it's beyond me and it's moved to, you know, my husband, my daughter. So I don't like, that's why I think it's kind of personal to each person, and each person's going to have a different threshold for acceptance of what they're going to look at and go, yep, I can put all my eggs in that basket. I have complete faith that this is a real phenomenon, etc. I think that that threshold is different for people, even though we're having things pop up. And part of it is the people that have to live with this. Not everybody makes it out the other side. It's a net negative to come forward and share your story at all. So to me, there's a lot of data points we're missing. I'm a medical imaging technologist, so I have a degree in radiologic technology, and I'm very science minded. I always have been. So where I look at this is where we need to try and erect some type of metrics. There are organizations. I know Hollywood works with a team of medical professionals that are trying to figure out how to come together to treat people that have been abducted or had contact and have post-abduction injuries, because there is some of that also in the community. So, you know, we're slowly kind of getting there, but I think that the majority of the data points that people look for when they try to define disclosure are going to lie in those type of data sets, the ones that come from the people that are having the closest contact. The craft are great. That's wonderful. If they do have biologics, they should absolutely share that. Just in the spirit of advancing our knowledge and our science. It would change the way we look at anatomy and physiology. It would give us something to compare our own physiology to, aside from other animals in the animal kingdom here. So, I mean, we're kind of at a point, I think, where if we can get past the stigma and create an avenue for people to go through a process of screening, make sure they're medically okay, they're psychologically okay, because you do have people that have delusions and make up stories. There are, instances of people telling their story and then having it get picked up by somebody else and propped up as their own. So stolen stories. If you can find an avenue to vet those people, make sure that nobody needs intervention or help, and get them in front of the appropriate people, we could collect a lot of really important data points. And that's really what we're missing, especially from my perspective. Like, our technology advances every day, imaging advances every day. Like, we can do some really amazing things. So if we open this up, I think we'd find a lot of answers. But I see hands, but I don't know who's actually got a hand up. So, Enter, can you help me a little bit with who's next?
Yeah. Ursula, did you have a follow-up question,
Um,
or were you?
yes, yes, I'm on my way to the movie. So, but, Chris, what do you think all of this is? I mean, could you say that it's like interdimensional, or are these beings from off-world? What do you think? Is it, or is it all of the above, a breakaway civilization? What's your take on that?
So, there's a perspective that this is like all control system, in terms of the intelligences. There's that perspective. I don't really hear much detail on how it works and what the intentions are and stuff, but you do hear about conflicting non-human intelligences, conflicting factions and stuff like that, all with their own agendas. And I mean, that sounds quite familiar to the Greek gods and how they kind of like view the gods. They were kind of like not very interested in humanity, and they all had their own squabbles and stuff, but they would sometimes come to Earth and pay interest in humans, have babies with them and stuff like that. So there's that whole like thing, and then there's one aspect. I mean, someone told me once that when certain people are talking about UAP, they're talking about the stuff that they don't know about. The people in the inside who know a lot, people who are former CIA and stuff like that, and they're basically referencing orbs because they truly don't know what they are. They're anomalous. They don't know what they are, but they don't count like non-human craft when it comes to UAP because they already know what they are. So in their own minds, when it comes to these non-human craft, they're not UAP, they're not unidentified, they know what they are, but they can use that term when it comes to the orbs. So that's always really, really been interesting to me. So yeah, that's the kind of like perspectives I've got, and I mean, I could have had my own experience as well, because you were asked if I had family members who had experiences, and I had. It was quite similar to the guy who spoke to I think it was Zabel, who said that he had seen a Nordic, and he kind of like went up and knew his name and stuff like that. This guy did, this Nordic guy. I think it was in the Northwest US, and I kind of had a similar experience to that once. Yeah, so just thought I'd put that out as well because I forgot to mention that, and I've not really mentioned that before either.
Thank you so much, Chris. I think Ash was next. So, Ash, if your hand is up, go for it.
Hey, thank you. And thanks for being so gracious and answering our questions, Chris. I saw you listening down there, and I see you lurking, in spaces, and so I know it's a feat to come up here and get bombarded. So it's very much appreciated. I wanted to kind of bring us, back a little bit. The the idea of like disclosure, like what precisely is it? Like, are we going to get this speech? And I just glanced at this clock that I have saved in my bookmarks. Trump has 900 plus days left of his presidency. That's a lot of time. And if anybody thinks that we're like, in the final stages, I think they're going to be sort of disappointed. I saw somebody today in my feed pointed out an interesting pattern that these releases have been spaced um, sort of sequentially in a pattern where the first tranche came out, or the second tranche came out a week after the first tranche. The third tranche came out 2 weeks after the second tranche. The fourth tranche came out 3 weeks after the third tranche. So they're pushing this sort of time frame out farther and farther, and it really makes me wonder, like, if they aren't concerned about the implications of rushing this. Um, One of the things that Annie Jacobson, the author, who's may or may not be a Fed or a tool of the Feds, she's highlighted that that cascading questions is a real concern as a result of disclosure. That once you open this can of worms, you can't close it, and that it's going to lead to more and more uncomfortable questions. It's going to lead to the areas of experiences that they don't want to talk about, or maybe they don't have answers for. Maybe it leaves them in a position where it doesn't look like they have control of our airspace, or they're unable to protect us. So there's a lot of implications to take into account, and I think that they're being advised to, like, maybe slow down a little bit. It's going to be a process. These whistleblowers that are in the public space, and the whistleblowers that are not in the public space, still have a lot of work to cover. They have to be they have to go through this process where they're now finally reporting some of the things that they've never been able to say before, not even to Congress. Dylan Borland highlighted this in his testimony, that he didn't know if he was able to describe certain things, even in a skiff with members of Congress, because they are not read into some of these compartmentalized programs. So there's all these broad implications that have to be sort of considered, and that's probably why we haven't seen anything in writing yet from the administration. They're taking their time, and they're probably trying to wrangle some things in. Hey, Chris, I have a question. Are you familiar with Don Paul Bales, the gentleman that Ross Coulthart highlighted as part of the rollout of Skywatcher and 𝗂𝗂𝗏?
No, I've not come across that name before. No, I haven't. But yeah, if you know anything about him, that'd be great, and I can check him out.
Yeah, there was as part of this whole rollout by News Nation of 𝗂𝗏𝗏's story, they published like long form interviews of all these different subjects, most of which are involved with Skywatcher. One of the things that people maybe didn't sort of pay that close attention to is that Don Paul um, sort of suggested that he was part of a security aspect of a compartmentalized program. And security, for a quote unquote legacy program, is something that's been a hot button subject lately. I'd be curious to see if Don Paul, has any information as it pertains to security. If he and others that were, potentially working for a private contractor at the time, if these guys are making steps to come in and maybe speak to Burleson or their staff, because yeah, there's some people out there that have like went under the radar that have said really profound things, and they haven't gotten a lot of attention as a result of it. And Don Paul is one of them. So yeah, I'll shoot you a link, man.
Thank you.
So I just want to welcome VC. He's come up and Paul's come back up, and I believe Justy had her hand up, and then Paul has his hand up too. So Justy, if you want to jump in, go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to say there's like a new push to like talk about or maybe kind of um, say that this is all having to do with secret societies and tech that's been basically produced by humans, not extraterrestrial. And I'm wondering what people think about that, if that's that's a possibility that some of this stuff is our tech. Like we know some of it is our tech, but maybe like this is a cover, and a lot of people are kind of pushing that scenario. Does it hold any water?
Hey,
Maybe Chris or Ash or someone who might have some 𝗲𝗂.
if I could just comment, my knowledge of the occult is very limited, so I'll say that to start. But I've brushed up against some people that have a very keen interest, and what I sort of see is that that maybe it is a component of this. Maybe it's a component to understanding this more so rather than like origins of it. Um, there's accounts going way back to people like Aleister Crowley and Arthur Edward Waite attempting to summon things and interact with entities that may not exist in our sort of realm of reality. And you have to wonder, how much does this cross over? There's people that argue it's 100% all related to it, and then there's people that say no. It's that maybe it's just a facet of it. I kind of tend to believe that it's a tool for understanding, perhaps for interacting on some level. I don't think it's quite as dark, really, as people would think. Some of it potentially is. Um, there's always like facets of these movements that tend to take meanings to extremes, and we see that, for example, in sort of like the idea of like jihad, right? Like there are groups that interpret things wildly differently than others. So there's the propensity for wrongdoing and for misinterpretation and for ill will and harm. But I think broadly speaking, like the occult related stuff, maybe it's sort of like a lens in which to view this and understand it.
I mean, there's more to it. I don't know if they talk about that, but also that, how they talked about airships in the 1800s and then it moved on to other things. Like maybe that is some sort of uh, hint or clue as into what is going on. Like maybe humans have been developing things that they've kept. And maybe they're like I've heard Lynn Buchanan talk about secret societies and knowledge, and maybe there's a certain sector of people who do keep these things hidden from the
Yep,
rest of,
yep, yep, yep.
the great unwashed. Um, so I really wonder if it's like multiple things going on at the same time. And maybe that's the reason why it's hard to pin down. It's hard to wrap it up in a nice shiny bow and present it to the public. Our history is probably more interesting than we really realize in some aspects as to who we are, what this planet is, and what's really going on, like what the parameters are of science and our reality. Um, I'm pretty sure it would be hard to kind of take in all at once as well. But
Can I just make a
yeah,
quick comment on that?
yeah, go ahead.
I think there's like this could be a several hour long conversation for sure. Like JJ, you're the queen of opening up a can of worms for sure. But I think you're right over the target here. There's a lot more to be said about this, and if one wanted a starting place, at least for me, it was the starting place was the book Dark Missions by I think it was Mike Baer and Hoagland, which details. I mean, this is sort of the you know maybe your graduation from white to yellow belt. It's sort of not getting into the real weeds of it, but there are certainly the obvious connection that you have the presidents, most of the astronauts, if not all of them, are extremely decorated in the Masonic areas. So This is due to, from my understanding, that once you've taken on the secrecy oaths that are part of these lodges, it's considered a sort of bona fides towards further levels of secrecy. So they do consider these as part of your CV, shall we say, and allows you definitely an edge on other people who wouldn't have that. But the historical aspects are quite fascinating as to what they know and what the public doesn't know. And I'll just leave it at that for now. But there's a lot more that should be said and could be said if we had more time.
Including human, like really human abilities as well. We really don't
Yes.
know what our abilities are, what the mind can do, what consciousness can do. Um, you know, that also obviously has been explored, but that is also part of disclosure, I believe,
There is a direct
as
lineage
well.
to antiquity and some of the so-called occult teachings that have been transmitted through these secret societies that they believe that they are the gatekeepers, protectors, whatever you want to throw into that. This has been many centuries in the making for sure. And I don't want to railroad the space by going on a big, you know, rant here about this, but I mean, we could do a whole space on this if you want to, Justin. We could really dig into this. I could pull some stuff up and we could show that there's clearly connections between the Scottish Free Rite Masonry and Egyptian lore. This is encoded into most of our government parliamentary facilities. So this is architecturally encoded in plain sight if you have the eyes to see.
Yeah, that's true. Just to say, I've got to go in a moment because it's like 2 a.m. here, but I'll quickly chime in. When I first got into this topic and I started meeting people, people seemed really obsessed with kind of like ancestry and lineage and stuff like that. And they wanted to know who you were related to. Did you have blue blood and stuff like that? The only thing I had is that there was like a family rumor that we're descended from 𝗧𝗶𝘁𝗹𝗲, the Duke of Wellington, and that was the only thing I had really. So there was that, and also there was that people thought, and this went on for some years. They thought that the further into the disclosure process you got, the more dangerous it could get, because there were certain people that thought there was like ISR activity being carried out by some of these UAP, and by actually kind of like alerting them that there was this like big effort now to kind of acknowledge their presence, that you could trigger some kind of event or something like that. So there was a lot of fear around that. But in terms of the occult aspect as well, that's really, really interesting. All I can say is that I was told that the US was very, very interested in the SS Ahnenerbe. I think that's how you pronounce it, which is the kind of occult kind of like aspects of the SS that were obsessed with Nordics and ancestry and stuff like that. And they kind of like were looking like for a master race or something along those lines. And kind of like what I was told by someone was that that's one of the really dark secrets of disclosure, that the US were kind of like utilizing them,
Is
and
that a
that
source of
they
yours?
had made
Who told you that?
yeah, yeah, it's actually in a story that I wrote because I felt
Fascinating.
confident about that one source. It
Chris,
was difficult to.
is your story about like the Nordic experience that you referenced, like is that out there? Or are you willing to briefly discuss that and like your own sort of experiences, regarding Brent Friedman, who you referenced?
Yeah. So that was just like something when I was younger, and it was just like one of those things that kind of like chimed true. It would just kind of like chimed with me that I was younger, and I think I was like 17 or 18, working at a supermarket when I was studying at university, and I didn't have my name badge on me or anything like that, and there was this like Nordic angelic girl who just like approached me on her own and just kind of like went up to me, made eye contact, and said, "Hi, Chris." And I kind of like felt like I'd known her for my life, and it was just a really weird, strange feeling. It was like, how does she know my name? Um, and then just walked off, and you never see her again. And then kind of like when you get into the UAP stuff, you hear like similar stories around that. I think Peter Lavender's mentioned similar stuff before, but for all I know, it could just be a normal person, and they could hear that story one day and laugh to themselves. So it's really difficult, kind of like telling whether that was legit or not. And I think Brent's story is probably more compelling than my own.
Chris, this is so interesting, man. And Miss A, were we talking about this yesterday about doing a space about all this?
We were. I've actually been, genetic connections really interesting to me as far as abductees or contactees. There's only anecdotal evidence right now. There's no peer-reviewed studies or anything like that. Just a few scientists that have kind of explored the topic with pretty shallow reference groups. But the anecdotal evidence points to, Native American ancestry, Celtic ancestry. My personal research, if you look, and anybody can look, this type of phenomenon or contact phenomenon comes up a lot around the world in many different cultures, and it's couched in a lot of different ways, and it's reported by a lot of different people. But yes, we actually were talking about this because I feel like that would be another data point. And I know that people feel sketched out about giving genetic material and having it mapped, but once you understand the science, you understand it's pretty safe. Like, nobody's going to clone you. They destroy your genetics when they process it. So like, I would love to see more of that. I think that other answers lie there too, as far as why certain people seem to be more attuned, or I think in my own personal case, it's being able to withstand the contact. I think that some people, especially people that have like post-abduction injuries, are not maybe genetically geared the best to endure contact. And I think that a lot of people that talk about healing or talk about having like long-term health issues resolved after contact maybe are attuned a little better to receiving that type of interaction. And I think we could find answers there. So, but I do want to thank you for coming, Chris. I really appreciate you being so gracious and answering everybody's questions. And you're welcome anytime. I hope you come back and chat with us, because we do talk about this stuff and delve into some of the minutia of how all of these things are linked together. I think there's a huge overlap in the corporeal and non-corporeal, and that is where we're missing a lot in our search right now, is including the woo and not turning away from it. But absolutely. So I know we had hands. I know Snap, you've had your hand up forever, and I can't see you. So if anybody puts your hand up and you feel like you're not being seen, I'm not going to kick you if you like chime in and speak out of turn or anything. So please don't hesitate to speak up. But go ahead, Snap.
Oh, good. I was going to ask Chris a really tough question. I don't know if it's too late for them or if he's already gone. Would you be open for that, Chris?
Go on, one more question.
Okay, it's a tough one, so if you feel free not to answer. My concern is I'm just looking at this from a different angle. So we talked about the intersection between the occult and nuts and bolts and stuff. One thing that I focus on too, and just being a novice historian, is the decoupling of like counterintelligence and intelligence in this topic. And I see the media today, and I see a lot of advocacy for this topic, which, yes, absolutely, verified that disclosure is a real thing that should be coming. Great. But my question to you, and like, how do you challenge yourself to remain like, how do you challenge yourself and check yourself against like advocacy and in the media, or if you see it elsewhere in the media? Because I see a lot of closed looped news cycles confirming everyone else's story, having the same people on podcasts, have the same people in the paper. There's a cast of 20 people that are always talking about this thing and advocating for the same thing. How do you with your journalism challenge yourself to step away from that loop, or maybe have like third party confirmation on something or vetting? How do you think about that, and how do you like challenge yourself not to get like caught up in it? Because I imagine it's really easy to do that. We do that all the time in these spaces. So I'm just curious how you do that, how you separate yourself and remain objective.
Yeah, really good question. I mean, I try not to do hit pieces or anything like that. I never tried to get down in the drama or anything like that. I used to have big debates with John Greenwald and stuff like that. We used to go after each other, and he used to just spend all day basically going after me online. I'm like, dude, like you have kids as well. I have kids. Like, how can you do this? Like, just get outside, spend some time with your kids. And I kind of like stopped doing that. And then my story is, you know, I tend not to go after people. So I try not to go and follow the drama loop. I try to I just try to find stories. I trust my instinct sometimes and then ask questions with
Maybe not,
sources to
maybe not
clarify.
at, yeah, because we're not a tabloid. Absolutely. That's not where I'm going with this. I think it's mostly about, since the 50s, when the disclosure movement started, there has always been this claim against the government that they're hiding something. And there's always been a intelligence element connected to it. I don't see any news about any of our star witnesses being targeted by counter intel ops or anything like that. Are, are those things happening? I just don't see it reported. So are you open to like those types of like stories where we can see like, look, this isn't just plainly um, do you understand my question? I guess I'm trying not to like frame it too much or answer it for you, I guess.
Is it in so is it in terms of like the whistleblowers and witnesses being targeted by counterintelligence and whatnot? Is that what it is? Sorry.
Sure. I mean, I guess you get a source. How do you vet that source to know that they're not a target of counter intel, that they're not reading counterintelligence on something? What if only 10% of what they're saying is true because the other part of it is counterintelligence and we're amplifying that through a megaphone? How do you think about that? Or do you think about that? And what do you do as a journalist to make sure that the sources are clean? Because counter intel folks are really freaking good at what they do. You know what I'm saying? Like it's an element that you probably think of. I'm just curious how you think about it.
It's really difficult, really difficult. All you can do is just try to corroborate as best you can with other sources. And if the two sources or three sources in some cases don't know each other and they're from different kind of like circles, then you could be more certain that the information is good. I like to think that a lot of the information I have reported is good. But especially when you're involved in this world, it's impossible to tell sometimes. Maybe we'll never know how some stories age, maybe we will. It's really difficult, really difficult. One of the most difficult parts of what I do basically is that corroboration process, trying to check out information. And it can get really difficult sometimes. Like for instance, you know, when I reported that Glenn Gaffney was the guy who blocked 𝗂𝗏𝗄 within the CIA. We reported that story. From my understanding, the person who blocked like the 𝗬𝗓𝗓 transfer, that was, I believe it may have been someone like 𝗏𝘁𝗿𝗄𝗏 within ODNI, and also 𝗧𝗶𝘁𝗶𝘁𝗋 could have potentially played a role. That's my instinct because obviously we've got the record basically saying he was the guy who didn't give, I think, SAP status for 𝗬𝗓𝗓. So I think that's really important to take into account as well. And then, you know, a few weeks ago we had 𝗬𝗏𝘁𝗶𝘁𝗃 interviewing 𝗏𝗏𝘁𝗏, and 𝗏𝗏𝘁𝗏 basically then said, oh, well, Glenn Gaffney had nothing to do with blocking 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏. It was something else. Glenn Gaffney had something to do with blocking the 𝗬𝗓𝗓 deal instead. So then you're left with a feeling, thinking, oh gosh, like, so there's two different accounts of this story now. One where Gaffney blocked 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏, another where other people blocked 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏, and actually Gaffney blocked 𝗬𝗓𝗓 instead. So when that happened, I got quite angry about it because, you know, it's there if you read the excerpt, which didn't ever get published within skinwalkers in the Pentagon. It basically says that it was Gaffney who blocked 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏. So that's in writing, and that's gone through 𝗧𝗶𝘳, and it's been published by 𝗧𝗏𝗶𝘁𝗋𝗃, George Knapp, and 𝗬𝗁𝗂𝗃, I believe, as well. So when you hear different accounts like that, it can get really frustrating sometimes. And I have checked up on that, and yeah, I'm still relatively confident it was Gaffney who blocked 𝗂𝗁𝗃, but yeah, that's the kind of environment I'm swimming in here.
I'm gonna commit a sin here. What is the chances, or what is your reaction to, or your thoughts about if 𝗬𝗓𝗃 was largely a counter intel operation?
𝗬𝗓𝗃 or ATIP?
No, 𝗬𝗓𝗃, like basically going out to Skinwalker
okay.
Ranch and saying we're doing all these, because it was very overt, in my opinion. And usually when we do things that are overt, it's because we want people to see it, listen to it, and hear it. 𝗧𝗶𝘁𝗶𝘂𝗰𝗁 writing a book, who's a patriot and who won't break his clearances, but he's perfectly happy with talking about entering a spaceship and saying we have it. So to me, as a person who is interested in how counterintelligence works, is it possible, and is that an angle you would look at?
It's a difficult one. I feel with these kinds of, I feel like with 𝗬𝗓𝗃, I feel it was people who knew a lot more than they were letting on. Like 𝗏𝗏𝗃 entered the spaceship, so he knew about it already. I feel that J Stratton as well, with his involvement in Pax River, I feel that he may have known a lot more when he was getting into this. And I feel that a lot of it is people who are insiders who are actually trying to find a vehicle in terms of getting this information declassified.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's kind of like my inkling on it, rather than counter intel.
Yeah,
because
I
also
just
you
like
have to remember as well that Harry Reid funded this effort. So if Harry Reid funded a counterintelligence effort, that doesn't look good.
No, for sure. I think I think with counterintel there are assets who are true believers too. And again, I'm just putting a different perspective lens against this to think about different implications and how history kind of repeats itself. But interesting to hear your take. Again, I like to just turn things upside down and be a little bit counterintuitive, I guess. And I know it kind of goes against the grains of all the things we talk about and agree with here in Spaces, but I appreciate your insight. And I know it's probably a tough one too. At 2 a.m, you must be tired. So I appreciate you, your interaction.
Thank you. I'll just leave you with this. That we're the close. I feel that we're the closest we've ever been right now. It could come to nothing. The White House could just abandon it. Could abandon any efforts it may have, or it could come to fruition. We may have disclosure. We're as close as we have ever been, and I think we've got a lot of people to thank if that does come to fruition, including J Stratton, Lou, Dave. Everyone's kind of played their role. I know there is a lot of talk about Lou at the moment that he's a bad actor and stuff like that. Well, if he was a bad actor and Clapper was a bad actor as well, why did they go out of their way to kind of push for disclosure? If they were bad actors, they would have just kept their mouths shut and never spoken about it and not had a concerted effort to get this all out. So I don't buy that, and I feel that if people want to carry out other agendas and stuff like that in terms of disclosure, I feel that we've at least got to get to first base first. We've got to get acknowledgement from the government. And yes, I also do believe that we do need compensation for whistleblowers. And I do feel that some people need to be accountable if crimes have been committed as well. So yeah, those are my thoughts on everything that's gone on anyway, but hope that helps. But no, thank you everyone, and I really appreciate you all for listening to me. God knows my wife doesn't listen to me, so I've got to find someone right. So thank you everyone, and take care. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Take care, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, anytime, Chris. If you see a space, feel free to pop in. We appreciate you coming by. 𝗏𝗏𝗃, you've got your hand up. Do you want to jump in?
Oh yeah, I was gonna. I think Gandalf though had his hand up before me though. But I was gonna.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Gandalf. Go ahead.
Sorry, Theo. We couldn't see it. We couldn't see your hand, man. Sorry, bro. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I had a couple things I wanted to get out to Christopher, but he already had to take off. But he already knows most of the stuff anyways. So people were talking about lineages. My aunt is a genealogist. I'm Native American, so I don't know if that could be involved. There's a couple things I'll cover. I'll keep it short and concise. I'm a direct descendant of one of the founding fathers. Like literally, my last name is written on the U.S. Constitution. A lot of our founding documents here in America, my family's last name is on it. I have a lot of history here. I'm a patriot, and so I've met a few of these whistleblowers. Lou's a good person. I just want to say a couple more things. Just don't buy into the whole distraction. The gentleman earlier mentioned Ron Pandolfi. I know for a fact that I'm not going to get off topic, but for a fact he's running psyops and he's feeding his goons are feeding information to Red Panda Koala, and his psyop information has made it onto News Nation. That is a fucking fact. You can quote me on that. I don't care. Go for it. The other couple things. Interstellar, you mentioned Grush talking about seeing bodies. Eric Davis just mentioned that 6 days ago. He mentioned a foreign adversary crash retrieval, and he said he saw images, I believe. I don't want to misquote him, but summarizing, he said he saw bodies, he saw images of it, and it was a foreign adversary. He didn't say who. You can probably guess it was the USSR, most likely. And then the last point, if people have any doubts that the phenomenon is not real, go look up in the nest, the second to last newest post. I'll keep it really short, like 2 or 3 sentences. NARA in 2024, it's the National Archives, basically the federal government, United States government librarians. You go to archives.gov, you can go look up the 1962 Bluegill Triple Prime, where a nuclear weapon, X-ray nuclear weapon blast shot down a UFO. Then the U.S. Navy sent out divers. A Navy diver went down there. They recovered the craft. He fucking panicked. I'm just being vague here. He panicked. He got a medal. He got discharged. And you can go read about all of this. This is all fact. And so if anyone has any doubts, go look in the nest. And there's a lot of stuff that is happening right now. I really am glad that Christopher Sharp was here because that's cool. He's only been in 2 spaces for the record, and I think they've been both Interstellar, if I'm not mistaken. So that's awesome. Thanks for everyone for coming up here and chiming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you, T.O. We have UFO Truth on the panel. So you've got your hand up, UFO Truth. Go ahead, jump in.
Hello? Hello?
Oh, hello. How are
Hi.
you doing chasing the skin grabbers?
Well, the hunt for the skin grabbers is still ongoing. But I just wanted to say that last guy who was talking, that Gandalf guy, and what he put in the nest, it's fucking retarded. It doesn't make any sense. That guy sounds like a fucking stupid fuck. I don't like that guy. Fuck that guy.
Well, that's not very nice.
Wow.
Come on. Oh, I'm sorry, T.O. I think UFO Truth is on a mission from God right now. And I try not to get in his way. I just go, yeah, that's really cool. I enjoy what you made. Cool. Yep. And hope that I don't end up in one of the videos, but you know how that.
Yeah. To respond to, I guess I'm gonna have to delete my accounts. I've just been totally destroyed here. Nothing I said made sense, so I'm gonna go delete my accounts now. It's nice knowing y'all.
Makes sense to me, my friend. So do we have any more hands? Because I'm glitching on my side. Does anybody want to jump in?
We've got 𝗓𝗂𝗧𝗧. Is your hand up, man? I think I can see it.
Yeah, I was just hoping to share with Chris before he departed. It was a really good episode with Jesse Michaels and Jason Samosa on the connections with Donald Trump and this whole Bahamas connection. I don't know if many of you have seen that, but I thought that was very interesting. I'd love to see some receipts, and maybe he'll go back and listen to the space, but that is a whole, there's the connection between potentially Trump being in some kind of inaugural position to head up this chain of shell companies that basically went on to become some form of intelligence organization, and that T. Townsend Brown was allegedly a part of this whole connection of this. This goes from anyways, I don't want to spoil. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend.
What was the T. Townsend Brown connection? If you don't mind.
Well, just that he was in. Basically, he was connected to, I'm sure if you followed some of the I guess we could call them some of the alleged associations that Townsend Brown had, being that he was part of NICAP and he had a connection to the Bahamas and was cited in his later career of being involved with this sort of shadowy network of NASA or NASSAU beginning in the 60s and due to
Oh
a lot of
yeah, I
his kind
know.
of
I know of him. I was just curious what arc, because yeah, I'm like into the NICAP arc of T. Townsend Brown. I
yeah.
know he's got a lot of accolades to his name. He's a pretty eccentric guy, but I was
Do,
curious
do,
where you're going with that.
doesn't he appears on the board of some company that ultimately leads to the World Commerce Corporation and Resorts World International, like through that Nassau group connection.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah,
Ashton was noted
you
for
should look
that.
at his affiliations with Council Services too. It'll be eye opening for you.
What's the council services? Elaborate.
It's a CIA fronted PR firm that helped basically boost up NICAP. He paid $1,500 a
Okay.
month. Yep, he paid $1,500 a month to it to get one of the largest magazine moguls to help boost them up. The two folks that worked with him, a guy named something 𝗬𝗓 and what was the other guy's name? They were previously in Guatemala with the National Fruit Company, which, if you know what that is, that's how he basically threw a coup in Guatemala. And they happened to work for the PR firm after that stint and helped prop up NICAP with Clara Johns and T. Townsend Brown.
Who was
This
who was
he
the
was
Nazi party member that was served on one of those boards down there in South America? He was like high level Nazi figure that like became entrenched with some of the same like Brooks Brown Harriman guys. I think it was in Guatemala or Honduras. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm
All
not
those like
familiar. No. Was it like related to the coup?
it was prior to the coup. But
I
this
don't know.
this
Yeah, I haven't looked into that.
yeah, there was a high level Nazi party figure that was never fully like he wasn't brought before the Hague or anything like that. He was kind of like allowed to just exist down there, and he worked his way into industry through this the banana wars. It's I'll find the guy's name. I'll post it down in the purple pill.
No, cool.
We
Sorry.
got
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean
sorry,
to. Well, I think I stepped on Hollow's toes there, asking a clarification question. So I want to make sure he was done. The nightcap
was it
thing's interesting with T. Townsend Brown. Like, I just wanted to see where you're going with that and if that was a connection or not. I'm sorry.
could it have been let's see, was it Rudolf Schreiber? Just guessing there now, but
Possibly. I'm gonna have to go back and look real quick.
okay, yeah, no, I'm just guessing as to some of the high level Luftwaffe people that I would think would be quite valuable in that. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen the Jason Samosa interview with Jesse Michaels, I would think there's a couple bombshells in there that makes you really wonder, like, if Trump is truly involved, and I'd of course want to see receipts on this and follow the rabbit hole in that, see where it comes. But it would definitely put Trump into a very different position in terms of disclosure. That means he's really been more intimately involved since the 70s at least. And considering his uncle was involved with the Tesla, papers and whatnot at MIT, it just I don't think he's as ignorant as we might play him off to be on this particular topic. I know he plays a good hand of cards on all this, but I think there's probably more to it.
we've got Fettuccine Spit up on the panel. Welcome up, man. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm just gonna tell a quick random story right now. Sorry to waste your time. I went to Radford University probably 24 years ago for a semester. I had way too much fun and was just kind of learning how to be a college kid. But while I was there was this gorgeous blonde on my floor at Muse, and I got to go to her bedroom or her dorm room once, and it was fucking awesome. I was like, "This is it. It's gonna happen." And I look at her pin board. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I walk up to it, and it's a picture of her and Fred Durst laying on her fucking dorm bed. Fred Durst had hit it before anyone, and he's in this room today. I just want to say hi, Fred, and I hope life is good, man. Thanks.
That was epic. I appreciate Fred being here. Fred, you were I'm a fangirl for a minute. So I grew up I was a teenager in the mid 90s. So Limp Bizkit was huge. I mean, your band was crazy huge for me and a huge part of the landscape for me growing up. So it's an honor to have you here and I appreciate it. I hope you come back and hang out sometime and maybe take a mic one night and tell us how you look at disclosure and what your thoughts are on the subject. I would be fascinated to talk to you and see how this is personal to you, because I think that really is what drives a lot of this for people, is it's that personal question. I talked about this at the beginning. I think that people are driven to explain things for themselves or find their place in the universe. And Justy talks about it a lot. And I love this about her, the nature of reality. What is it really about? For me personally, I think that a lot of the things that we see are just meant to distract us, and that a lot of the answers that we're seeking, we probably already have within. I think the invasion's over. I think we've been sharing the planet with something for a while, deep time while. And I think that that's really what disclosure is going to be about, is like that revelation that this isn't just something that happened from Roswell forward. It's actually been something that's been pretty integral to our evolution as a species overall. So I can't see hands again. So like if you want to speak and I can't see your hand, just chime in or speak up. But King Milkfart, welcome to the stage. Would you like to chime in and say hey to the room?
Yeah, hey, what's up? Hey, Fred Durst, Talking Heads, can I get a thumbs up or a thumbs down? I'm gonna need a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the Talking Heads, Mr. Durst. Like now, like not fucking around.
Dude, I bet you he's a fan.
How can you not like Talking Heads? I mean,
yeah, like why would you pose that question? Like this is not a like
Because right now I'm not seeing a fucking emoji from him, and it's pissing me the
well,
fuck
that could
off.
be the app, though. I mean, that could be the app. The app is not working for me. I've had to I lost the ability to even host a space for about 2 weeks after the update, and had to go through hell to try and get it back on my phone. So,
if you zoom in, I believe it's a thumbs up. If you zoom in on a PFP.
Oh snap! I got a name for you. So the guy's name was 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗏. He was a Gestapo chief, and
sounds like it.
Yeah, he ended up in the employ of the U.S. Army immediately following the war. He was integral in sort of development of some of these regimes in South America, and then he flipped during the 1980s during the cocaine wars, and ended up on the right side of things. Just coincidentally. So yeah, there's an interesting tie-in with this high-level Gestapo chief who's he was like referred to as the Butcher of Verdun, I think. Yeah, bad guy.
I think we're at
This is why this right here is exactly why Wes Borland left.
Who?
Fred knows.
Drop him down.
Yeah, no, none of that.
Well, thank you, King Milkfart, for making an appearance. Legend swings through XSpaces. We've had quite a few of them tonight. It's been a lot of fun. I think this is probably a good place to close. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say parting? I see 4 people up on the speaker panel with me.
Just thank you. I listened to a lot of it, and it was really great. And I know I had some challenging questions for Chris. Hopefully that didn't scare him away or something like that. But I also think with all the positive sentiment that goes with what goes with the subject too, that we're also critical and we can hold people's feet to the fire and not let the ball go by. You know what I mean? So if you're wondering where I'm coming from, if you've probably heard me, but that's where I'm coming from, is just making sure, like, if you don't get this damn thing in like 20 years, you got to start asking some different questions. You got to get some new people in here that stop with the whole attaboys. You know what I mean? I don't know if that came through or not.
You asked some great questions, also, Nat, man. They were awesome.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
your posts online and very impressed, man. You definitely hone in on the important stuff. Hey, I'd like to say that it's immensely important that everybody tag their elected leaders, their officials, their senators, tag Stephen Miller, tag Scarvino, tag Donald Trump Jr., tag all of the people that may be making decisions behind the scenes. Like, we are all, kind of sick and tired of the runaround, and we have to demand answers of these people. They are on social media. They do pay attention. They do glance at shit, in between meetings and in elevators. And, the more of us amplify this message and show these people that this is extremely important for us, like it puts us in better position to actually get, at least some answers. So, yeah,
Hey,
tag away.
Mrs. A, I'm so sorry, shit. Can I plug my Sunday space with Grider and Gene really quick?
It's already in the nest, man.
Oh,
Go for
Of
it.
course, plug away. No, Snap, plug it, because you should tell the room what it's going to be about.
yeah.
And
Hey,
I know you guys.
yeah, I'm a huge history nerd, and I love going through like the history of the stuff. And I'm going to hold a history space with Grider and Gene. We're going to cover. It's going to be called the lead up to Roswell. We're going to cover basically Foo Fighters. Special shout out to airships. We're not going to cover that, but we'll do Foo Fighters, World War II. We'll get into the Maury Island incident with Kenneth Arnold. That's a fucking movie on its own. So we'll be very tight-laced, document-backed history stuff with conversation. We have a very, very special guest. We won't know until tomorrow evening when he confirms, but he's a long time in this field, never been on a space, kind of a big deal. So, like, check it out, just take a peek in. He's on a work event, and he has to confirm with us tomorrow night if he can do it on Sunday. But that's Sunday at 8. If you're a history buff and you just want to hear a bunch of people talk about some old school UFO stuff with maybe a couple of extra twists, because our guest was certainly going to have a lot of deep dives in there too. So would love everyone to show up if you're into that. Thank you.
And Carlos popped up. Excuse me, my voice is starting to go. Carlos popped up. Carlos, you want to jump in? Got some parting words for the room?
Yeah, I would also like to plug something if that's okay.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Awesome. Well, first of all, this is a great space. This is a top shelf space, actually. We need more of these. So misanthropy, no pressure, but this is excellent. Great discussion and very lovely people up. I just wanted to just announce that I'm beginning work on a side project called Dangerous Liaisons. And basically, it's going to be recordings of classical ufology, excerpts of classical books, simply because I want to show that a lot of the questions that the community has were being asked decades and decades and decades ago, in the 50s, in the 60s, even way back in the 40s. And a lot of these articles come from that era, and we're all standing in the shoulders of giants here. A lot of it is not new. So I think it's actually a pretty good idea, especially for newcomers who aren't very familiar but are very curious to explore those. I'm going to try to do new recordings, like at least one every week or every other week. Please be patient with me because I am experimenting with AI speech or voicing, because I don't like the way my voice sounds, so I'm not going to read them. So I'm just typing them and having an AI voice read it for me. So they'll get better as I keep learning. But for right now, I have 3 episodes up. The last one I'm going to kind of re-record and put up again sometime maybe tomorrow, because I was not satisfied with how the AI turned out. but it's still there. So if you want to listen to it, you're more than welcome if you can keep up with the pace. And so that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. I've actually thought about doing that. I collect vintage books. I have a old Alfred Hitchcock, Scary Stories You Want to Read with the Door Locked. And I've thought about doing some spaces and reading those. I think people would get a kick out of
Hell
them.
yeah, do it.
Yeah. But yeah, does anybody else want to get their closing words in, and then I will close the space? Justy, Interstellar, Ash, do you guys want to say anything before I shut it down?
Yeah, real quick. We're in the midst of a media war, like a perception war, a narrative war. Be aware that like some of these figures that are popping up need to be questioned. You have to look at what they don't say in addition to what they say. In particular, this guy James Erdman. I'm sure there's going to be others to follow, and yeah, support whistleblowers. There's a lot of them, and they're out here amongst us. Some of them are quiet professionals, and they'd rather not assume the spotlight. Some of them have been brave enough to push this message that enough is enough, and so yeah, like do what you can and tag away and yeah, support the cause. Thank you, everybody.
And for the love of God, avoid being panda pilled, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Ash. I just tried to add Grider, Miss A. I don't know if you can add him. I had a problem adding him. See if he wants to come back up.
I'll send him an invite. Let's see. Grider, see if you
Also,
can come.
also, Grider, try and join Anon and then come back not. That's worked for me with the bug. He's got to
Descend
be
to
on
the
an Android.
tunnels. Yep, descend to the tunnels and then come back out and then go back in. I've had to do all kinds of crazy.
What's the tunnels? Is that what the Anon
The
is
Anon
called?
is called, yeah, the tunnels. I've heard people call
Oh.
it the tunnels.
I was going to call it interlopers now after that interview with what's his name.
Hey, I'd also just want to say, Mr. Fred Durst, thank you for joining us. Your presence here, even just listening, draws a lot of attention to these spaces. People see you, up on their, on the homepage of their apps and engaging in this topic, and it brings a lot of attention. So your presence is appreciated. Thanks for coming in. I hope I get an opportunity to chat with you. I'm a former metal musician, so perhaps we could swap some interesting stories, man.
There's a lot of musicians in this community, Fred. Carlos is a guitar player. I sing. So there's a lot of us that would appreciate, musical interludes also. Just throwing that one out there. But Grider, do you want to jump? Yeah, Grider, do you want to jump in?
For crying out loud.
Grider.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Hey, sorry, can you hear me?
Can now.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah, so I just popped into the space. Sorry, I didn't show up earlier, so I don't really know what you guys are talking about. But I just want to promote the space that 𝗬𝗓, Gene Sticco, and I are going to be hosting on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's the first space of the UFO history group. It's titled Prelude to Roswell. We're going to be covering everything from like Foo Fighters up to basically July 1947. And I can go on and announce now that our special guest speaker, very, very special guest, is former head of MUFON.
Hell yeah, you confirmed?
Never been in spaces before.
Sorry.
Yes, James Carrion, right? Who's the author of the Roswell Deception. He's an expert in not only ufology, he's one of the most well-researched ufologists on the planet right now. The guy is an expert in counterintelligence, intelligence history, aviation, military, you name it. The guy's got like a master's in international studies. He's got a bachelor's in, I think it's Russian language. The guy is a very intelligent man. He's very, very, very well-researched, knows a lot about the events that led up to Roswell, and of course knows a lot about Roswell. This guy was the head of MUFON for basically, I think, 6 years in the 2000s, right? But I know for a fact that it was in the latter part of the 2000s, from like 2005 to 2009. I know for a fact he was the head of MUFON. So this guy is a really intelligent person. Hopefully we kind of welcome him into the community, at least in this space. He's never been in a space before. He kind of withdrew from the community after he kind of got lambasted due to one of his theories about what happened at Roswell. So really look forward to talking with this guy and having a great conversation. And hopefully this will be the beginning of a series of spaces that we'll continue to run every Sunday night. And yeah, really, really looking forward to it. So thanks for letting me do some self-promotion.
Yeah, good thing,
I really
because
appreciate it.
I didn't do it either, so it's good.
No, I look forward to that space. I enjoy listening to you guys riff, especially when you get a bunch of guys that bring all of their knowledge to the table. I really appreciate those kind of spaces because I like to sit and listen. So my closing remarks. Going back to what I opened this space for, it's a personal journey for everybody. Speaking from my contactee couch, I would encourage people to be open. Is there reason to be afraid? Yes. There are malevolent entities out there. Is there reason to be hopeful? Yes. I think that there's so much nuance to this, and most of it we don't have. And just realize that, like, the people that are out here telling you that they have the lock on what the truth is are pushing you bullshit. Nobody has the monopoly on truth. Nobody. Not me, not the next guy, not the next whistleblower. Like, we all are coming to this with our own perspectives and our own pieces of the puzzle. And I think that that's really important to keep in mind, in that you got to leave your beliefs malleable to future discovery. If you marry yourself too deeply to your beliefs, you're going to be really disappointed no matter what you choose to marry yourself to. So that ability to be destroyed, rebuild, relearn, shift your paradigm, deal with the ontological shock, because there will be some of that, I think. And as far as, like, I know people, excuse me, like to talk about catastrophic disclosure. I would just caution people, my same kind of feeling on CE5, be very careful what you wish for. I think that we tend to think we're capable of more than what we're capable of, and then we sell ourselves short in other areas. And I just think back to COVID and how that was handled by the population at large, and it didn't inspire a lot of confidence in me. So, there's a lot of angles to consider on this whole topic, and I just hope that everybody stays open. But I appreciate everybody that came. It was really a pleasure to have everyone that swung through speak. I do want to play a song for King Milk-Fart on the way out in honor of the Talking Heads, and I would just appreciate everybody. Please come back to the next one. We'll see what happens. I'm open to topics. I like to dive into all kinds of things, and my scope is a lot bigger than UFOs. So I know some people have talked about, like, ghosts and shadow people and that kind of stuff, and we can always talk about that too and kind of dig into that because it all overlaps. But I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you all for coming. Everyone have a good night. And